They actually had something called a prime directive, the same kind of prime directive you see that they utilize that same term in Star Trek. In the Star Trek TV series, since it came out in 1960 all the way till now, they have a prime directive in which they cannot directly engage or interact with any civilization that's pre-warp. If that civilization is pre-warp and they're going to actually go down to the surface of that planet, then they have to pretend like they're part of that culture. They have to pretend like they fit in, like they're not really aliens or from space. And they can't alter or change or give them any technology in any way, shape, or form. It's forbidden, literally forbidden. Well, they've got that information from the ancient tablets. And the Watchers descended to Earth because they were attracted to human women. Now, that's not me saying that. That's in the book of Enoch. That's the ancestors saying this. They were attracted to human women. And this group of angels was led by Zemaziah and Azazel. Zemaziah and Azazel were the two chiefs or leaders of this particular crew of these Watchers. And they decided, you know what? These girls look pretty damn good. We're going to take some human wives. Now, it's interesting that when you read the Enuma Elish or the Epic of Atrahasis, you discover these beings in there. They call them the Igigi. And these Igigi people are these Anunnaki workers. They're not slaves, but they're the working class. In other words, if I own a construction company, I'm the boss, then I have a master architect, and underneath that I have a foreman, and then underneath the foreman I have workers who go out and actually do the labor to build the product or the house. You see, it's a structure, it's a system. Well, these Igigi, they said the same exact thing in the Epic of Atrahasis. They said, we want to get some of these human women. We don't have no women over here. They were working, according to them, they were working on Mars. And they were complaining about the conditions. And they said, you're working us like we're slaves, and we're not slaves. And not to mention, we want to take some of these women back with us. So in two different texts from two different time periods, we find the same story. And so they began families. So they basically breached heavenly boundaries and all the rules that were set before them to not interact, not engage, and definitely not have sex with human beings. Not that they only have sex, but they said, you know what, we're going to keep these. We're going to make them our wives. And so then they started doing something again that was against the prime directive. They started teaching forbidden knowledge. I didn't say that. The book of Enoch says that. And the fallen angels impart various types of knowledge and skills that were previously unknown to mankind, which had a profound and often detrimental impact on human societies. These beings, not only did they come down for the good loving of the woman, the human woman, but they also then violated another law and began to engage mankind and give us the forbidden knowledge. And why was it forbidden? It was forbidden because, why? It was forbidden because this information that they were giving to humans was going to expedite our advancement technologically. And when you advance your technological prowess, all of a sudden, there's room for extreme detriment to that civilization. When you take a civilization that isn't maturing enough spiritually and give them advanced technology, turn them into a technocratic civilization, they can potentially destroy themselves. And that's where we are right now. We're going to go in for a little while about the book of Enoch. Make sure you guys click that like button so we can get the algorithm. Click the like button, and also please, if you can, share the video. Okay, share the video, click the like button. I'm going to be talking about the book of Enoch tonight. All right, the book of Enoch. I'll describe to you who Enoch was and everything else. If you look into the dogma of the Christian belief system, they praise Enoch for being so holy and so so good to God that he was taken away and straight to heaven. He didn't have to die. He went straight into heaven and he never came back. That's what they preach to you, right? They tell you that this guy was just a real good guy, and he did everything that God wanted, and he was without sin, and he was so incredible that hey, just take him straight to heaven. Just bypass the whole death process. Just go ahead and take him to heaven. And they'll teach you that in Sunday school, right? And so that's the story that you get, but that's not the actual true story. Not the true story. It's quite interesting that Enoch is highly, highly, highly revered in the biblical text. However, his own book, look at all this information in here, was left out of the Bible. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think Enoch's text was left out of the canonized Bible? The descent of the Watchers. They descended from the sky. When we hear this, the biblical text or the Enoch text, what are we being told here? We're being told that these people, and I do mean people, came from the sky down. They descended from the sky down to the earth. They were the Watchers. They would watch over humanity. In some ways, they were forbidden to engage humanity. Some of them were forbidden to actually engage, in other words, to directly interact or interfere. It was against the rules. They actually had something called a prime directive, the same kind of prime directive you see that they utilize that same term in Star Trek. In the Star Trek TV series, since it came out in 1960 all the way till now, they have a prime directive in which they cannot directly engage or interact with any civilization that's pre-warp. If that civilization is pre-warped and they're going to actually go down to the surface of that planet, then they have to pretend like they're part of that culture. They have to pretend like they fit in, like they're not really aliens or from space. And they can't alter or change or give them any technology in any way, shape, or form. It's forbidden, literally forbidden. Well, they got that information from the ancient tablets. And the Watchers descended to Earth because they were attracted to human women. Now, that's not me saying that. That's in the book of Enoch. That's the ancestors saying this. They were attracted to human women. And this group of angels was led by Zemaziah and Azazel. Zemaziah and Azazel were the two chiefs or leaders of this particular crew of these watchers. And they decided, you know what? These girls look pretty damn good. We're going to take some human wives. Now, it's interesting that when you read the Enuma Elish or the Epic of Atrahasis, you discover these beings in there. They call them the Igigi. And these Igigi people are these Anunnaki workers. They're not slaves, but they're the working class. In other words, if I own a construction company, I'm the boss, then I have a master architect, and underneath that I have a foreman, and then underneath the foreman I have workers who go out and actually do the labor to build the product or the house. You see, it's a structure, it's a system. Well, these Igigi, they said the same exact thing in the Epic of Atrahasis. They said, we want to get some of these human women. We don't have no women over here. They were working, according to them, they were working on Mars. And they were complaining about the conditions. And they said, you're working us like we're slaves, or we're not slaves. And not to mention, we want to take some of these women back with us. So in two different texts from two different time periods, we find the same story. And so they began families. So they basically breached heavenly boundaries and all the rules that were set before them to not interact, not engage, and definitely not have sex with human beings. Not that they only have sex, but they said, you know what, we're going to keep these. We're going to make them our wives. And so then they started doing something again that was against the prime directive. They started teaching forbidden knowledge. I didn't say that. The book of Enoch says that. And the fallen angels impart various types of knowledge and skills that were previously unknown to mankind, which had a profound and often detrimental impact on human societies. These beings, not only did they come down for the good loving of the woman, the human woman, but they also then violated another law and began to engage mankind and give us the forbidden knowledge. And why was it forbidden? It was forbidden because, why? It was forbidden because this information that they were giving to humans was going to expedite our advancement technologically. And when you advance your technological prowess, all of a sudden, there's room for extreme detriment to that civilization. When you take a civilization that isn't maturing enough spiritually and give them advanced technology, turn them into a technocratic civilization, they can potentially destroy themselves. And that's where we are right now. It's going to be a great talk tonight. I'll be digging into the compendium of the Emerald Tablets, the compendium of the Emerald Tablets. Well, I took the Emerald Tablets and the Emerald Tablet singular, because there's two different tablets. There's actually way more than that, but I focused on these two. So the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, both of them are in this one book. And I broke down the tablets, the meaning, and the information, the science, the technology that's encoded into the verses, so that everyone can understand exactly what was being said over 36,000 years ago. We're going to go into this topic tonight. We're going to talk about the UFOs in the Emerald Tablets, which is going to be pretty interesting, because what it's going to do, it's going to show you that in ancient times, they are referencing advanced aerospace technology that we have now today. You know, I mean, there is no original idea. Literally, everything already exists. And everything is existing in the ether of space-time. In other words, every thought that we think, it goes out of your skull. We know this in basic science, classical physics. If you go to a doctor and they cut, a brain surgeon, and they put an EEG on your scalp and connect it to a computer, they can read your brain waves. Why? Because your brain waves leave the computer, leave your skull and go to the computer. They go through the wires and go into the computer. The brain waves leave your skull. The brain waves, your thoughts don't stay inside of your skull. They leave. They leave as what? As waves of light. So at all times, your mind is always generating light waves, but light waves that are encoded with information. Digital bits of information encoded on the waves of light. That's how it works. So you are literally sending out information into the universe at all times. So your mind is always generating waves of light. Just like this cell phone, right? I have a cell phone here. This cell phone and your cell phone is connected to a tower. That's why they call it a cell phone, because cellular towers, these towers transmit a frequency called a microwave. What is a microwave? It's a wave of light, okay? You can't see the microwave, and thankfully we can't see microwaves. We can't see ultraviolet, infrared, we can't see gamma waves. We can't see, if we could see all the different variations of waves of light that exist, we would be completely distracted. We can only see just less than 1% of the light waves that actually exist. Truthfully, we mostly only get RGB. That's it, right? Red, blue, and green, and combinations of those red, blue, and greens. It's pretty interesting. But these waves go out encoded with information. So this cell phone is connected to a tower that has microwaves, right? The data in the phone transmits out. It rides that beam of light, that microwave, it's a light wave. It rides it to the tower. It's piggybacking it to the tower. From that tower, it gets sent to other towers around, up into a satellite, depending on how far you are away. It drops it back down to a tower in your local region. And then the information that's encoded, the digital bits of information that's encoded into it, ride the wave down to the other person's device. And the device lights up. And then the processor inside the phone decodes the encoded piggyback message on the light wave. So we use light waves to send information because we found a way to piggyback the information on the wave of light and let it ride with it out. Look at the universe as a whole. Your mind is doing that every single thought that you think. You're sending information into space-time 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every idea, every thought. So this is why I believe in the book of life. I believe in, which originates in the Egyptian book of the dead, by the way. The Bible picked it up much later. I believe in the book of life, which is also talked about in the Emerald Tablets, which is 36,000 years old. And the Akashic Records is the same exact thing. There's a record of every thought that has ever been thought of by every sentient conscious entity that exists throughout the entire multiverse. So when you sometimes say, oh man, I had a great idea, a lot of the times you just got on the same frequency of an idea that already existed and you downloaded it. Because just about everything has already been thought of and already done and already accomplished. We only rediscover these things. But we're going to talk about the fact that they're referencing technology in the ancient past. And this technology is literally technology that we today are calling advanced. Back then, this technology was advanced. Now what we have today is just catching up to it. Let me go to my book, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. You know, this book was written in a time, not really the book, but the tablets were written in a time where Thoth says it's almost like a time capsule waiting for a new human to arrive to decode it and understand it. At the time that he wrote these tablets, the people around wouldn't have been able to even conceive or understand the meaning in here. But now we have arrived literally at the time that he predicted so many eons ago. And we are the people that have the capability of not only reading them, but also deciphering the encoded messages and understanding it here in this, what we call the modern era, right? Or recorded history. So Thoth is being spoken to by his father, Thothme, who's also known as Ea Enki in the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. These are the same two people. And he's being talked to and spoken to about fulfilling a plan after a global disaster happened on Earth, which is pretty interesting, right? So I'm going to go in here and start off reading directly from the book. And Thoth said, speaking the word, calling the power, deep in Earth's heart, the sons of Amenti heard and hearing, directing and changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting using the logos, until that great fire changed its direction. Over the world then broke the great waters. He's talking about deep in Earth's heart, the sons of Amenti heard and hearing, directing the changing of the flower of fire. We're talking about the Earth's core. We're talking about the internal core of the planet itself. Right now, you're hearing in the news that the core of the Earth is getting ready for a reversal. Every so many tens of thousands of years, this happens. It's normal. It even creates a reversal of Earth's magnetic field. So right now, if you go out to any area where there's volcanic activity and you can get your hand on some volcanic rocks, some really old volcanic rocks, and you take those volcanic rocks and you check the position or the orientation of the atoms, if they're more than 27,000 years old, you will find out that the atoms are oriented opposite. In other words, north is south and south is north, meaning that the Earth's magnetic field is recorded in volcanic rocks, okay? And we know this is basic archaeology 101. This is what they teach you. But what's interesting about this is it means that the Earth's magnetic field, it flips every so many tens of thousands of years. On average, around every 26, 27,000 years, the Earth's magnetic field does a flip. Now, what's happening here in this current era, if you begin to research the Earth's magnetic field, you discover that Earth's magnetic field is actually warping and wrinkling in a way that's even letting a lot of radiation and cosmic rays hit the planet because it's bending in a way. And the magnetic north has begun to move. And where is it now? Magnetic north has now moved over Russia. It's actually just now beginning to pass Russia. So it's been ticking away as our magnetic field is preparing itself for a complete flip, south to north and north to south. This is what Thoth is talking about here in the Emerald Tablets. He's talking about something that we're experiencing right now today in modern science. You can Google this, you can look it up. It'll be on all the mainstream news pages that the Earth's core is slowing down and getting ready for a reversal, and Earth's magnetic field is overdue for a magnetic flip. Now, what's more proof of this? Look this up. The fact that airlines have had to rewrite or recode the numbers, the degree numbers on the runways, because all airplanes travel through different coordinates for runway so they can line with the runway properly, right? They have to align with the runway. And even in autopilot, they begin to create that alignment. The plane knows what it's supposed to do, and the pilots, of course, know what they're supposed to do. But because magnetic north has been moving and planes fly based on magnetic north, not North Star, because they fly on magnetic north, they've had to rewrite the coordinates on runway so planes can make the proper alignment to land. Because if they didn't, planes would be crashing into the water, on other runways, not being able to land properly. This is how important this is. In this particular situation, it had caused a global disaster, or it was a result of a global disaster. Can you see here what happens? Shifting and using the logos. The logos is an energy, so the energy of the earth has shifted until that great fire changed its direction, until the earth's molten core flipped and went in the opposite direction, which creates what? A magnetic flip. Broke the waters. Here comes the global disaster. Over the world, then broke the waters. We're talking about the first occurrence of a great flood in recorded history on these emerald tablets, all right? Drowning and sinking, changing Earth's balance, until only the Temple of Light was left standing on the great mountain of Undal. So there's a mountain that's so tall at this time with a temple on top, and the only thing that was standing was the top of the temple. Everything else was completely covered in water because it had such a global disaster happened that shifted the oceans to move across the land in a way, probably had a pole shift of the crust of the earth itself, not to mention a pole shift of the magnetic field. And then on top of that, you have water being displaced in mass, and that mass then shifts and moves over the land, creating a global flood. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. If you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the original and full account of the story of Noah, which made it into the Bible. They copied it from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is 6,000 years older than the Bible itself. Zuzudra is actually Noah. And you find that there were people, if you read the biblical version, and of course, if you read the original version in the Epic of Gilgamesh, there were people that survived this great flood. And it's saying it here in 36,000-year-old text, which predates the Epic of Gilgamesh and predates the Bible. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. Called to me then the master, saying, gather ye my people. The master is his father. His father is saying, get your people together, get your crew together. We got work to do. We got to fix this problem here. So Thoth says, take them by the arts ye have learned far across the waters. Take them by the arts ye have learned. In other words, your blueprint, your architectural design knowledge, your language knowledge, your rebuilding knowledge, your everything that's needed to restart civilization. All of that which you have been studying and have been working on all of these eons, it's now time for you to implement that knowledge with your team. Take your team, get them together, and take them across the waters. He says, take them by the arts ye have learned far across the waters until ye reach the land of the hairy barbarians. All of a sudden, we have a situation here where the people have gone from technological knowledge and wisdom to just basically almost cave level again, okay? He's calling them hairy barbarians, dwelling in the caves of the desert. Follow there the plan ye know of. Gathered I then my people, that's his crew, and entered into the great ship of the master. He entered into the great ship of the master. His dad said, you know what, take my ship. Take my ship and go take care of this business. Now this ship that he got into, it's not a ship that sails on the ocean. Listen to this. This is very important right here. One of the most important parts in the evidence of something that doesn't sail but flies. Upward, we rose into the morning. He didn't say we got into the ship and sailed out to the sea. He says upward. I don't know of any ships except for spaceships and airplanes that go up. He says, dark beneath us lay the temple. Beneath. He didn't say the water was beneath us or the ocean was beneath us or the sea was beneath us. He said dark beneath us lay the temple. The temple of where? The temple of Undal, where he just left when his father told him to go and take his crew. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from earth, What are the waters? See, in ancient times, they call the upper atmosphere in the sky the waters. The area where the clouds are and above were called the waters. In the Bible, they call it separating water from the waters. But the fact of this, vanished from Earth. They've actually left Earth's atmosphere. They've actually gone up so high that they've left Earth. Until the time appointed was the great temple. Fast we fled toward the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. Now you see, very few books out there, very few tablets that you discover will reference Egypt as the land of Chem. We know that Egypt was Kemet, ancient Kemet, long before it was called Egypt. Egypt is a fairly new term given by the Greeks. But he said, fast we fled toward the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. And the people there who had been surviving and generations have survived, maybe 2 or 3 generations have survived, they're now, back to, chisels and hammers and hunting and everything else, right? But they're not at the same technological level that they were before. Fast we fled towards the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. Raging they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. So he lands this ship. The people are like, man, what the hell is this? They're scared, they're pissed, they're a little worried, like, this is our territory. What is this thing? This could be danger for us. So when Thoth's doors open to the ship and they begin to walk out, the people of Kemet come running at him with weapons. They're getting ready to try to defend their land and their territory. They don't know if they mean good or if they mean bad intentions. So we're gonna attack. We'll attack you first, ask questions later, right? That's basically how humanity always is anyway. Everything we think is coming to kill us, so we attack everything. That's why the UFOs don't come and just land in your front yard, because people will probably go get their guns and shoot them right away. So this is what happens here. Raging they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. Here's what happens. It's very interesting. Thoth says this: then I raised my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone of the mountain. So he has a weapon that is non-lethal, but has the capability of reaching them via a frequency. It's a frequency weapon. And this frequency weapon freezes them in their tracks and stops them from coming to attack. Now that's pretty interesting. We're talking about 36,000 years ago. This guy's got a frequency beam weapon that can stop a gang of people from coming at him. Now, we were supposed to be literally just, living in caves, right? Just living in caves at that time, using chicken bones and copper chisels to do basic stuff, right? Making spears and trying to kill rabbits for dinner and all that kind of stuff. But then guess what? This guy comes with technology, crazy technology. Let's take a look at this and see if we have this kind of technology in modern times. It's called the active denial system, right? It penetrates the skin 1/64 of an inch, causing the feeling similar to being on fire. And they have different types of active denial system frequencies. It's a frequency weapon where they can make you feel like you want to vomit. They can make you feel ice cold. They can put voices in your head. They can make you feel like you're in pain. All right, all these different things they can do with the active denial system. Let's take a quick look at this short video.
Marines and several other DoD representatives had quite the heated demonstration at Quantico, Virginia from the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate.
This is a military area. Move away from the perimeter. I say again, this is a military area. Move away from the perimeter.
Their new active denial system boasts a reach far beyond any other non-lethal system.
Well, it's a versatile system, and it has a range of non-lethal capability that we can't even come close to with any of our fielded systems today that are in our military forces.
About 7 football fields to give it some perspective. It can deter individuals on a military perimeter all the way up to a riotous crowd. All without permanent harm.
It only penetrates 1/64th of an inch of your skin. Goes very shallow into where your nerve receptors are, and there's no permanent injury caused by it. Very safe system. We built in some safety margins and training for the operators.
They even let any of the guests volunteer to test out its effectiveness and safety, including the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, and Assistant Secretary of the Navy.
And Thoth said, "Then I spoke to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis." Pretty interesting. Atlantis was a global civilization. It was not just a ring city, and I'm going to show you here in a minute. So then I spoke to them in words calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis, saying, "We were the children of the sun and its messengers." He called himself a messenger, and his crew messengers. He did not call himself God. Here's something very interesting now, where it gets really interesting again. Cowed I them by my display of magic science. So what he's saying is, when he says cowed, C-O-W-E-D, that's an old term, an old way of saying I confused them. This technology, when I pulled out my doodads out of my pocket, when I pulled out my watch and my cell phone and some other things that I had fancy buttons and lights on it. When I did that, it got them like, wow, this is crazy. What is this stuff? Right? Until at my feet, they groveled. So these people at that point, when a more advanced being with technology meets a less advanced civilization, the less advanced civilization is going to immediately deify them and begin to pray to them, drop down, become humble, and so forth and so on. But check this out. He had magic science. Magic science translates as advanced technology. So he begins to show them his technological doodads that he had. And the people drop to their feet immediately. But guess what he does? He released them. In other words, he said, "No, stop." Don't drop down to your knees and grovel at my feet. Come on, get up. Let me show you what's going on here. Let me enlighten you. I'm not God. I'm a son of Atlantis and one of its messengers. He even calls himself a son of man several times in this book, which is what? Very reminiscent of the terminology that Yeshua, aka Jesus, uses in the modern day New Testament of the Bible, where he calls himself what? The Son of Man. Interesting. So he says, he released them. He told them, look, at ease, guys, relax. I'm good. We're on the same level. I'm just here to teach you something. Long dwelt we in the land of Chem, long and yet long again, until obeying the commands of the master. Remember, the master, his father, had given these commands to go there and rebuild the land of Chem after this flood. Go out there. So this took time. They weren't there for just a few days. They were there for a very, very long time, right? He says, until obeying the master, who while sleeping lives eternally. So his father is in the halls of Amenti. That's where he left him. These beings had these things called the halls of Amenti. There were several of them around the planet. Several of them. There wasn't just one, right? And so Thoth says he had his own halls of Amenti, which he had deep beneath the Great Pyramid, and they found those halls. His father had a couple of them. One is also in Africa, which I visited in person and have video clips of me there. He's talking about the fact that his father had put his body into one of the rejuvenation chambers in the halls of Amenti. In the halls of Amenti, they have these rejuvenation chambers. They look like gigantic sarcophagus, but these things weigh about 100 tons each, and inside of them is some type of technology. I've been to the one underneath the sands of Saqqara, all right? And I've shown videos and photos of that at the Serapeum and showing these giant sarcophagus that were there. I've been inside of them. There's pictures of me on top of them. It's an amazing story, which is coming out very soon in one of my new episodes of Anunnaki History. But he puts his body, so he's sleeping, but yet lives eternally, because they keep transferring their consciousness from one body to the next. This was their secret of immortality. So, and I say in this book, magic science translates into advanced technology that was most likely small devices that he was already carrying like a toolkit. For some 16,000 years, he ruled the ancient race of Egypt. This is the land of Chem. From approximately 52,000 to 36,000. 52,000 BC to 36,000 BC, he ruled over the land of Chem. At that time, the ancient barbarous race, among which he and his followers had settled, was elevated to a high degree of civilization. They slept in rejuvenation chambers for 100 years at a time as they astral projected and traveled amongst the universe. Sons of Atlantis. This is important. His crew that stayed with him for all those years, all those eons, building up the land of Chem. He now says, our job here is complete. We have reestablished a high level of civilization. We have reestablished a new golden age in the land of Kemet. This is before the dynastic era even begun. Long before the dynastic era it had even begun. He says this, I sent for me the sons of Atlantis, sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time, wisdom might rise again in her children. Long dwelt I in the land of Chem, doing great works by the wisdom within me. So he stayed there. He stayed in the land of Chem while he sent his crew and spread them out all over the planet. Those sent his crew to all continents to kickstart new civilizations based on the same basic architecture and sciences. These Atlanteans were global, and each ruler put a genetic marker on their humans, which created the different races we have today. Atlantis was not a ring city only. A ring city, the ring city that sunk in the Atlantic Ocean, was just one capital of many capitals that existed on Earth at that time. Anywhere you are right now in the world watching me speak, you're sitting directly or standing directly on top of Atlantis right now. This earth was literally Atlantis. Another Bible verse, apparently copied from much older text, seems to resonate with the words of Thoth, is Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. It's the same, he's saying the same thing. He's saying the same exact thing. And I do these comparisons between biblical text and Thoth's words, and you can see that in the modern day Bible, a lot of the New Testament, it comes directly from the Emerald Tablets. Upward grew into the light of knowledge the children of Chem. Now, Chem is interesting because that's where you get chemistry and alchemy. They come from the land of Chem. That's where it originated. The land of Chem is where you get alchemy and chemistry. And after that, the Greeks and the Romans and everybody else, they learned directly from the Chemists. Watered by the rains of my wisdom, blasted I then a path to Amenti, so that I might retain my powers, living from age to age as a son of Atlantis, keeping the wisdom, preserving the records. Great grew the sons of Chem, conquering the people around them, growing slowly upwards in soul force. We're talking about ancient tablets that were not written by a scribe. See, in ancient times, 80% of the tablets and texts and scrolls that exist were written by a scribe. So we're talking about an advanced civilization here that is rebuilding a place long before the dynastic era of Egypt. The dynastic Egyptians, this is going to be hard for you to grasp. The dynastic Egyptians inherited what was already there. Both said Builded I the Great Pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, so that it too might remain through the ages. He built the Great Pyramid. Now, he didn't build it with his physical hands. He instructed and taught the Kemetic people his advanced building techniques using his technology. He had the blueprint though, and his blueprint can be found all over the planet. Anywhere you go on Earth, you're gonna see the blueprint from Egypt everywhere, the land of Chem, everywhere. Because remember, the people that he had as his crew, they stayed with him for eons, and then he said, now go. Now go and spread out all over the planet and duplicate what we did here. We're branded. Every single person on this planet has a genetic brand on them. You're branded. The people that ruled over different regions of the planet, the people that ruled over the lands of Asia, the people that ruled over the European lands, the people that ruled over the lands of the Americas, different races of people that came with both the Atlantean, that didn't put a genetic marker. So these are my people. Don't you dare touch my people. They can be identified as my people. Flash forth my soul through infinity's beauty. Far through space, I flew with my thoughts. Rested out there on a planet of beauty, strains of harmony filled all the air. Shapes were there, moving in order, great and majestic as stars in the night, mounting in harmony, ordered equilibrium, symbols of the cosmic like unto law. Many of the stars I passed in my journey, many of the races of men on their worlds. We're talking about multiple planets with multiple races of men, many races of men. Not one race, many races. Some reaching as high as the stars of the morning. In other words, some reaching golden age level, high spirituality, high technology. Some falling low in the blackness of night, some collapsing civilizations. Each and all of them struggling upward, gaining the heights and plumbing the depths, moving at times in realms of brightness, having glimpses of greatness in them, right? Living through the darkness, but trying to gain the light. Isn't that where we are right now? Isn't that where we are right now as a civilization? As a civilization right now, at this exact moment, this is exactly where we are right now. Struggling upward, getting the heights, and plumbing the depths. We rise up, right? We then, hey, this is great, we're doing okay. And then some crazy stuff happens and we go back down again. Isn't that right? Each of them all struggling upward, getting the heights and plumbing the depths, moving at times of realms of brightness, living through the darkness, gaining the light. So even though we're living in a lot of darkness, we are gradually still gaining light. Like I said before, what's interesting about darkness and light is this. You have to understand a couple things. This room right now is full of light, so much light that my forehead is glowing, right? And there's no amount of darkness that I can inject into this room that will make this room dark. Light is just that powerful. It's just that powerful. But if I turn all these lights off and make it pitch black in here and just get the cell phone light in my camera on my phone and turn it on, the darkness will flee instantaneously from the light. You see? In the end, the light always wins. And in the end, men are always trying to seek the light. As a whole, more people want light than darkness. This is a fact. The darkness stands out because the mind is attracted to seeing the darkness. You're gonna see the things that are dark faster and recognize them faster than you will of the light. That's the way our minds are programmed, because we have this reflex system in us to make sure that we're not killed, attacked, or hurt, or injured. It's a protection mechanism. So we identify the threat instantaneously anywhere. And so darkness stands out like a beacon for us because, oh man, what's going on over here? I gotta pay attention to this. It's a threat to my existence, right? But light is still all around us, everywhere you turn. Know, O man, that light is thine heritage. Know that darkness is only a veil. Sealed in thine heart is brightness eternal, waiting for the moment of freedom to conquer, waiting to rend the veil of the night. There's a moment that we're coming to that we're going to have to address the darkness that we see before us on a daily basis, and that we will begin to extinguish it and remove it from our lives, starting with ourselves, removing the darkness from our own hearts and letting that become the new conscious virus, and spreading that type of consciousness virus throughout the planet. Everyone first removing the darkness from their own hearts, and then having unconditional love for one another. Light is your heritage. In other words, light, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, love is your birthright. It's your birthright. The problem is when we're born, like you heard me say so many times, you're given a name, a race, and a religion, and you spend the rest of your life defending a false identity. You truly never know who you are. You have no clue who you are. It's your duty and your job now to seek the light and to live now. Your experience here in the third dimension, in this corporeal body, as a sentient human being, is a version of you as God walking in the flesh to experience life from that perspective and gain wisdom and knowledge and understanding for a period of time. It's a fractal of a moment. It's not even, living for 100 years, even living for 150, even living for 1,000 years is less than a blink of an eye on geological timescales. We're not even here that long. It's boop, you're gone. Open shall be the path to Amenti. Fast fled we then on the wings of the morning. Fast fled we on the wings of the morning, fled to the land of the children of Chem. They left the Lord. The previous verses, they were at the dweller's place. They were on a whole different place on the planet, and they hopped in their bird wings and they flew. All right, they got back to the land of Chem. There, by my power, I conquered and ruled them. He's talking about the fact that he helped raise them up to a high level of civilization. And not only that, he began to rule over them for about 16,000 years, keeping them in point, keeping them on check. Raised I to light the children of Chem. Deep neath the rocks. This is interesting here. Deep neath the rocks, I buried my spaceship, waiting the time when man might be free. He's talking about he buried it underneath the Sphinx. Over the spaceship, erected a marker in the form of a lion, yet like unto a man. That's the great Sphinx. Thereneath the image rest yet my spaceship, forth to be brought when need shall arise. In other words, when there's a need for this ship, it's there to be brought forth. It's there to be used and taken from underneath the Sphinx. UFOs and the Emerald Tablets. You see, the Great Sphinx, mainstream, it keeps trying to tell people that it used to be a lion's head on it. It never had a lion's head on it. It never, ever, ever had a lion's head on it. The Sphinx's head originally was the head of Thoth the Atlantean. In ancient Sumerian cuneiform tablets, he was called Nigazida. And his father, Ea Enki, said, build the Sphinx and aim it at Leo, because that was a time and era that Thoth had the ability and the right to rule, and put your face on it. So the original face of the Great Sphinx was actually Thoth's face. Thoth the Atlantean priest king, his face was on the Sphinx. At a time when him and his brother continued to have these internal battles, his brother was Marduk. Marduk is in the Bible. Marduk is in the Torah. Marduk is in the Jewish library. He's also known in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where his name is also Amun-Ra. Marduk and Thoth were brothers having internal battles. Marduk was extremely evil and wanted to really masquerade as a god. He really wanted to be a god, and he forced people to worship him and pray to him and everything else. Because of this, he was going head to head with Thoth. Ea Enki said, look, Thoth, I tell you what, man, I'm tired of stopping these fights between you guys. You go to the other side of the planet, go work over there in the Americas, in Mesoamerica, and kickstart a new civilization over there. So Thoth took, according to the Sumerian tablets, Africans the Olmecs. He took the Olmecs with him, and he went over to Teotihuacan long before Christopher Columbus was even born. We're talking about thousands of years ago. And he built the Teotihuacan civilization in Mesoamerica, all up through Teotihuacan, down into Tulum and Tula, and all the way down into Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula. And the evidence of this is that the Teotihuacan pyramids are an exact identical copy and orientation of the Great Pyramids at Giza. Even the Pyramid of the Sun, which represents the Great Pyramid in Teotihuacan, the base of the pyramid is the exact same dimensions of the pyramid that Thoth built in Egypt. And he says, build it out of the Great Pyramid. So he built the Great Pyramid, took the same exact blueprint, built the same exact system over there in Teotihuacan. The Pyramid of the Sun is exactly 50% the height of the Great Pyramid at Giza. Also another strange coincidence. And both are built on top of aquifers, and both pyramid systems align with the Orion star system. Know ye, O man, that far in the future, invaders shall come from out of the deep. He's not talking about the deep water, he's talking about deep space. Then awake ye who have wisdom, bring forth my ship and conquer with ease. Deep neath the image lies my secret. Search and find in the pyramid I built. Each to the other is the keystone, each the gateway that leads into life. Follow the key I leave behind me. Seek the doorway to life shall be thine. Seek thou in my pyramid. I've been to the Great Sphinx several times. I've been in shafts that go underneath the Great Sphinx. And so check this out.
So this is called, this is a site experiment. It's called seismic tomography. With seismic tomography, you can test for spaces.
This is one of those non-invasive technologies that I was referencing.
Right. So the seismic tomography experiment was they were listening here and then hitting the surface around the Sphinx, right? And they were describing several areas that could be voids. Okay. One of those voids, which we all think is probably the most likely candidate for the quote-unquote quantum record, starts something like here, extends forward by 12 meters, and then 9 meters to the side. It's a big place. And Schock and Dobecki concluded that the signal actually is fairly regular in terms of, right angle corners, sharp edges. So they think this is a man-made chamber about 5 meters below us. It's full of water, most likely because the groundwater level comes up to about 5 meters. So, but according to my reconstruction under the Sphinx, this archive was breached. This is not sealed, which is what Edgar Casey said. I think and I have evidence for it, right? So I think this archive was breached a long time ago. The content was removed, and it ended up in Hermopolis.
We have evidence here, at least in a written form, that people in ancient times had information or foreknowledge of spaceships, of an invader coming from deep space, of a need to use a ship that's buried to be able to defend Earth against these invaders, according to this text. This is pretty interesting stuff, pretty deep stuff. We have a being that has a capability of traveling to different planets and watching civilizations rise and fall. You know how long that takes to watch a civilization rise and then fall? To observe many races of men on their worlds, rising to the heights and plummeting to the depths. We're going to go deep into the key of time. In the Emerald Tablets, you have these different chapters. And what I did was, in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, I took those chapters and I broke them down into a compendium in my book where I break down all the secreted knowledge and information from the tablets themselves. Who was the author of the tablets? The author was Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. That's what he called himself. That's what the people also called him, pyramid priests of old. He was known throughout Africa as Thoth, Tahuti, Jehuti. He had many, many names throughout Africa. Out into Europe, he was known as Hermes, Thor, Odin. Into Mesoamerica, be the North and South Americas, part of North America and most of the South Americas, he was known as Kukulkan. He was known as Lord Pakal, Viracocha, a person that had many, many names. He was Quetzalcoatl, right, down in the Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula, all the same person. To the Chinese, he was Wang Di. To the Australians, he was Thoth Amabi. We're talking about the same person over and over again. So tonight we're going to be reading from my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. And like I said before, what I did was I took the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, and I did a compendium. A compendium is when you take the information and you break it down in a way that makes it easier to understand for most people. That's why it says underneath the title, it says a beginner's guide. And so I took the secreted knowledge and I basically showed you where the spiritual knowledge was, message in the spirituality, the technology, and similar technology we have today. I listed in there as well, so you can see the comparison between the two and see that we're talking technological advancement, technological use, technological applications. And then I also show you the aspect of the tablets, which is how to become a person that is literally becoming born again. In other words, by seeking the light and rising to a higher level of consciousness so that you can look back on your previous self and realize that you've been born again out of that previous self and risen to a higher level. All right, so I'm going to go to the key of time without further ado. Emerald Tablet number 10. So I'm reading from Emerald Tablet number 10, all right? And this is chapter 12 of my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablet. Let's kind of go through this together. I always separate when Thoth is speaking and when I'm speaking. And Thoth said, "List ye, O man, take of my wisdom, learn of his deep hidden mysteries of space." He says the deep hidden mysteries of space. He's talking about the ether of space-time itself, this soup that we're living in. Learn of the thought that grew in the abyss, bringing order and harmony in space. He's talking about the thought. Thoth. The word thought comes from the name Thoth. That's how we originated the name. But what he's talking about, thought that grew in the abyss, talking about out of nothing came a thought. What is the first Hermetic principle? All is mind. That is the very first Hermetic principle. And so since all is mind, we're seeing here how the principles laid out many thousands of years later still fall back to the original, which is 36,000 years old. Know ye, O man, that all exists as being only because of the law. Know ye the law, and ye shall be free. Never be bound by the fetters of night. What he's saying here is once you understand this law, once you understand this universal law that all is mind, that mind transcends space and time, that mind then also goes out and sets out to create, it will set you free. You ever heard of a person that's talking about being imprisoned, right? And they've endured many, many years of imprisonment, and some of them become enlightened, and you ask them, how did you do the time? They say their mind was never in prison because the mind can travel, right? Look at remote viewers. I did a whole workshop on remote viewing. It's on Forbidden Knowledge TV. If you look at remote viewers, what do you see? You see that we're able to set our mind outside of space and time and gather intel on targets at locations. Why is that? Because the mind can transcend space and time. So what he's saying here is, know ye the law, and ye shall be free. Your mind shall be free. They can lock up the body, but they can never lock up the mind unless you give them authority to. Never be bound by the fetters of night. Never be locked up by darkness. Far through strange spaces have I journeyed into the depth of the abyss of time. This man's talking about time travel, 36,000 years ago. He says, far through the strange spaces I have journeyed into the depth of the abyss of time, until in the end, all was revealed. So he went back, probably and forward in time, looking and learning along the way. Know ye that mystery is only a mystery when it is knowledge unknown to man. He says, when ye have plumbed the heart of all mystery, knowledge and wisdom will surely be thine. In other words, he's saying here, when you have studied the depth of information, of knowledge against something that's a mystery to you, then it won't be a mystery to you anymore. You'll be wise. And this is a message to us for many things we can apply to in our lives. In other words, let's stop guessing and being ignorant to things that we should have knowledge of. Things are holding us back in life. Things are keeping us locked down. There's situations that are being withheld from us, blessings that we're actually not getting access to, simply because we won't put the energy into gaining the wisdom and knowledge to set ourselves free from the lack of knowledge, which is called ignorance. Seek ye and learn that time is the secret whereby ye may be free of this space. He's saying once you have the knowledge of time and how it works, how to send your mind through time, you'll be free of this space. In other words, the space that you're in, not space in the stars, but the space that you're occupying at this moment in time. So I add some conjecture to this. Thoth is telling us again what the sages of old have been saying for eons. Time does not exist. Clocks exist. When your scientists figure this out, they will rediscover what the ancients already knew. According to the theory of special relativity, it explains how there's a difference of time that elapses between two events as measured by observers. For example, if one person moves faster than another person, then the first person will experience time at a slower rate. And the clock, the faster the person is carrying, will tick slower than the clock the second person is carrying. With this understanding, it is not so difficult to accept the fact that the arrow of time is an illusion. If you lived in the fourth dimension or higher, you would be able to see the past, present, and future all at once. In general relativity, clocks that are near the stronger gravitational field of a planet run slower. This is an actual scientific fact. And so we know this. So time is bendable, time is malleable. It's not a straight arrow, right? A straight arrow of time is actually an illusion. And we know that these time dilation bubbles exist. Thoth says, long have I, the God of wisdom, sought wisdom, I, and shall seek eternity's end. For know that ever before me receding shall move the goal I seek to attain. Even the lords of the cycles know that not yet have they reached the goal. For with all their wisdom, they know that truth ever grows. He's talking about the fact that knowledge is a lifelong journey. Knowledge is not something, oh, I know this, I'm done, I'm good to go, I'm good. I got everything I need to know now. I'm good, I'm straight. No, that's not how it works. A true seeker of knowledge and wisdom knows that it's a lifetime, everlasting journey. You never stop seeking and learning and gaining wisdom and knowledge. The day that you do is the day that you start dying spiritually. He said, even the lords of the cycles know that not yet have they reached the goal. For with their own wisdom, they know that truth ever grows. There's more truth, and sometimes previous ideas or concepts or hypotheses can be overturned if you are a true truth seeker. If you really are truly seeking wisdom and understanding, over time, not all, but some of your concepts and ideas and perspectives will begin to evolve and change. It's not dogmatic. A truth seeker is not dogmatic in their belief system. Dogmatic belief is religion. Dogmatic belief is politics. Spiritual understanding and growth seeks attainment of adept initiate knowledge, non-stop. Once in a past time, I spoke to the dweller. He's talking about the dweller of Undal, which is really his father. Asked of the mystery of time and space. Asked him the question that surged in my being, saying, "O master, what is time?" Then he spoke to me, he the master. "Know ye, O Thoth, in the beginning there was void and nothingness, a timeless, spaceless nothingness. And into the nothingness came a thought, purposeful, all-pervading, and it filled the void. There existed no matter, only force of movement, a vortex." We're talking about a torus energy field, or vibration. Vibration. What is a vibration? Cymatics. In the beginning was the word, and the word was what? Vibration, frequency, cymatics, sound. Of the purposeful thought that filled the void. A purposeful thought. When we look at the double slit experiment, and we see that when particles are shot, microscopic particles like electrons or photons are shot through a tiny little slit, when they hit the back wall of that experiment, they create a wave pattern until we put an eyeball down there, a little looking glass or a camera to see what's going on. Then the electrons convert from becoming a wave into a particle and leave a digital print on the back of that experiment wall. Why is that? Because electrons make a conscious decision to collapse into digital matter based on conscious observation. This existed since the beginning of what we call time in this universe. The thought went out, conscious thought from the universal consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it. That thought then, if you really research string theory, began to vibrate these microscopic subatomic strings, which began to vibrate cymatic frequencies that emanated this universe into existence. The universe exists, according to quantum physics, as waves of potential until consciousness interacts with those waves and collapses it into what we call solid matter. We know that solid matter is actually an illusion. Distance is an illusion. Locality is also an illusion. And Thoth said, and I questioned the master, saying, "What was this thought? Was it eternal?" And answered me the dweller, saying, "In the beginning there was eternal thought, and for thought to be eternal, time must exist." So they had to inject time into a scenario in order to emphasize the fact that the thought was eternal. So into all-pervading thought grew the law of time. Time, which exists through all space, floating in a smooth rhythmic movement that is eternally in a state of fixation. Time changes not, but all things change in time. For time is the force that holds events separate, each in its own proper place. Time is not in motion, but ye move through time as your consciousness moves from one event to another. See, you don't actually physically move. You don't go anywhere. Quantum physics proves locality and distance is actually an illusion. What is moving through this ether? It is your mind that's moving. And guess what? There's only one mind. Your meat suit that you call your body, it exists as both a wave of light and solid matter. We are truly beings of light because all that exists in the third dimension is made of light. Light waves that we can't physically see with our human eyes because our human eyes can only see less than 1% of the light spectrum. But yet, physics.org put out an incredible article just a few years ago showing how matter converts from waves of potential into solid matter based on conscious observation. They actually caught a particle in transition, moving from a wave into solidity, giving us that illusion that gives us this perspective of a third dimensional realm that we inhabit. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around the fact that the only thing that exists here is consciousness. But as you heard me say before, if you look at the as above, so below from the Hermetic principles, you'll realize what I'm telling you is a fact. If you see your mind in your head, your brain inside of your skull, so to speak, and then magnify that from the micro to the macro, and then take it on as a universal consciousness. What's going on? What is a universe on a massive scale doing, right? If you look at your brain inside of your skull, locked in complete darkness, it doesn't know what's going on outside of itself. It has no clue. But your brain has what? Friends, hearing, sight, smelling, seeing, taste, touch, and everything else, all your senses. So your brain says to the sensory perception friends, hey guys, go out there and collect some data. Let me know what's going on. So the friends go out. They themselves don't know what they're collecting. Eyes go out and pick up photons, right? The fingers go out and touch things. The tongue tastes things. The nose smells things. The ears are hearing. They don't know what they're collecting. They're collecting data, raw data that they themselves cannot decipher. They transmit that information or that data to the brain, and then the brain sorts it all out and says, oh, this is what's going on out there. And then you navigate through this holographic matrix based on a holographic projection from your consciousness. The only thing that's moving here is your mind, not you. That's it. And there's only one. Everything is conscious. Because why? All atoms are conscious because the electrons that orbit the atoms are conscious because they can make conscious decisions based on observation and conscious thought. So he says here, time is not in motion, but ye move through time as your consciousness moves from one event to another. I, by time, yet exist. All in all, an eternal one existence. Eternal one, O-N-E, caps. They put all caps. O-N-E, we are all one. Know ye that even in the time ye are separate, ye are still one, in all times existent. What Thoth is saying here, that even though we look to be separate individuals and our minds seem to be separate minds, completely detached from one another, he's saying, no, ye are still all one with a capital O-N-E. In all times existent. Pretty interesting. Took a reference here from In Search of Miraculous by PhD Opensky. George Goodeve claimed man lives in life in sleep, and in sleep he dies. In other words, he was saying that people cannot perceive reality in their current states because they do not possess a unified consciousness, but rather live in a state of hypnotic waking sleep. Goodeve claims was that humans live in a waking dream, and only a dream that they are awake. This state of waking sleep is also called relative consciousness. It is the level of consciousness that ordinary humans are born into. They live their lives and then die in, never waking into one or more objective states of full awareness, because most humans are walking around in a state of waking sleep. They are never able to know who they truly are, and therefore they remain unaware of their true motivations and the causal forces which motivate them in their daily choices and activities. In conclusion, when humans cannot determine their true motivations and remain unaware, they lie to themselves, and thus their entire lives are lies. Reference is In Search of Miraculous by PhD Opensky. And guess what? I agree with him 1000%. There's people walking around out here that are soulless avatars simply operating on matrix programming. They're living, but they're not alive. And they're all around us. They're all over the place. people that have never woken up to who they truly actually are. They simply are operating on the code that they've been programmed and given since they were born, since they were even in the womb at gestation. The same code, just running on programming, never exceeding the programming, never reprogramming the programming, never editing it, never hacking themselves, just running on the pure code and living a complete lie, believing that they're alive, but they're not. And Thoth said, now I'll go back to Thoth again. Cease then the voice of the dweller. He said, I'm done talking now. I gave you the knowledge. Now you got to go, you got to get out of here and act on it. And departed I to ponder on time. This guy said, you know what? As smart as I am, what my dad just told me, I need to go sit down and meditate on this. He said, departed I to ponder on time. I got to sit down. I got to digest this. Too many times we get the information, like the information I'm giving to you tonight, information from a workshop, information from an Instagram post or a video short or a reel or a TikTok or whatever. And then we just keep on scrolling. We keep on moving on, right? Oh, we got it. Oh, that was pretty deep. Let me keep on going. Let me just look for the next roll. Let me look for the next reel or TikTok or the next video clip. Wait a minute. Sit down and meditate on it for a second. Let the knowledge seep in. Stay in the present moment. Let your mind start to vibrate and get on the frequency of understanding. Let your mind begin to ask more questions so you can seek more answers. Don't just brush over deep knowledge as if it's like, nothing. Let it seep in for a second. And Thoth said, cease then the voice of the dweller, and departed I to ponder on time. For knew I that in these words lay wisdom and a way to explore the mysteries of time. Oft did I ponder the words of the dweller. This guy says, man, I can't get this off this stuff is embedded in my brain. I can't get it off I can't stop thinking about it now. It's deep. Then sought I to solve the mystery of time. So now he says, you know what? I got to take action. I got to figure this out. Found I that time moves through strange angles. Time moves in angles. Yet only by curves could I hope to attain the key that would give me access to the time space. Wow. Only by curves. In other words, the time is moving in angles, but to catch up to these angles to access the information, he had to move in curves. We're talking about the Fibonacci spiral now. We're talking about sacred geometry, right? This is what we're getting into now. We're talking about pi and phi. Yet only by curves could I hope to attain the key that would give me access to the time space. Found I that only by moving upward and yet again moving rightward could I be free from the time of the movement. He's talking about shifting into another dimension in a 90-degree angle. How would he know this 36,000 years ago that modern day theoretical physicists hypothesize that we are living in a universe that has 11 dimensions and they're on top of each other, compactified. And yes, compactified is a real word. Look it up. I remember the last time I used that word, people were laughing in the comments. He made up a word. No, I didn't make up a word. That's what they teach you at the university. And to get access to these higher dimensions, they're in 90-degree angles right above each other, stacked and compactified. How would he know this 36,000 years ago? Found I that by moving upward and yet again moving rightward, I could be free from the time of the movement. Forth I came from out of my body, moved in the movements that changed me in time. Strange were the sights I saw in my journeys, many of the mysteries that opened to view. I saw man's beginning, learned from the past that nothing is new. Seek ye, O man, to learn the pathway that leads through the spaces that are formed forth in time. Forget not, O man, with all thy seeking, that light is the gold ye shall seek to attain. Your goal is to seek light. Your goal is to seek the light, not the dark. Search ye for the light on thy pathway, and ever for thee the goal shall endure. If you continue to seek light, your goal, your mission, your ascension will continue to endure. Let not shine the heart ever to darkness. Light let shine soul be a sun on the way. Know ye that eternal brightness, yea, shall ever find thy soul hid in light, never fettered by bondage or darkness, ever it shines forth a sun of the light. He's saying, stay away from the darkness. Stay away from the people that are entertaining dark ideas, dark concepts. Stay away from thoughts that entertain darkness. If those things come around you, escape them immediately. Keep your mind focused on positivity, enlightenment, wisdom, understanding, love. Seeking the light. That's what seeking the light means. I know through hidden in darkness, your soul, a spark of the true flame exists. Be ye one with the greatest of all lights. That's one with the universal source. Find the source, the end of thy goal. Light is life, for without the great light, nothing can ever exist. That's powerful. Understanding that light always rules over darkness. Even though we have yin and yang, we have good and bad, we have darkness and light in the universe, we know that light is more powerful than darkness. Know ye that in all form matter, the heart of light always exists. Always. Everything in this matrix is made of light. If you take two atoms and smash them together at CERN, at the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, you'll find that what are these particles made of? The essence of them is made of light, waves of light. Even though bound in darkness, inherent light always exists. Once I stood in the halls of Amenti and heard the voice of the lords of Amenti, saying in tones that rang through the silence, words of power, mighty and potent, chanted they the song of the cycles, the words that opened the path to the beyond. I saw the great path opened and looked for the instant into the beyond. So the movement of the cycles. Vast was the thought of the source could convey. Knew I even infinity is moving on some unthinkable end. Even infinity is moving according to a specific law. So that the cosmos is order and part of a movement that extends into all space. A party of an order of orders, constantly moving in harmony of space. There's an order to everything. Second law of thermodynamics, we know that everything moves through entropy. Moves from an ordered state to a disordered state, and then recongeals and comes back to an ordered state again as a different form. Energy can't be destroyed, it can only be transformed. So the wheeling of cycles, like vast circles across the sky. Knew I then that has being is growing, and meet to another being is far off grouping of space and time. Knew I that in the words are power to open the planes that are hidden from man. That even words lie hidden in the key that will open above and below. He's talking about cymatic frequencies that have the capability of transcending dimensions. You can transcend dimensions through cymatic frequencies. You can transcend space and time through frequencies. Everything is all about the frequency of the words. Words, people conceive words as I'm speaking English, or I'm speaking Spanish, or I'm speaking Russian, or whatever it is. What you're actually doing is you are emanating a cymatic vibration from your vocal box that rides on atmospheric gases until it reaches somebody's cochlea inside their ear, and then the brain deciphers it and gets the signal as to what it believes you are trying to convey, the message you're trying to convey. That's how it works. But on a universal scale, these cymatic frequencies and vibrations on a subatomic level literally are creating reality as we know it. Hark ye now, man. This word I leave with thee. Use it, and ye shall find power in its sound. Say ye the word, Zin Uru, and power ye shall find. See, when you say this word, Zin Uru, Zin, Z-I-N, Uru, U-R-U, it's a cymatic frequency. It emanates a particular frequency into space-time that has power. Every time you speak, you're casting a spell. Every word, that's why they call it spelling. Every word you say is about casting spells. You're trying to create a reality that's good for you, a reality that you want. You want things to turn out to benefit you in a specific way every time you speak. Saying this word Zin Uru has that effect over space-time when you back it with conscious thought behind saying this, making the statement. You misunderstand that man is of light and light is of man. Remember, I told you earlier that scientists discovered that a human being is both a wave of potentials, waves of what? Light, and also solid matter. So we are all light beings, but also our consciousness is also light. Listen, O man, and hear a mystery, stranger than all that lies neath the sun. Know ye, O man, that all space is filled with worlds within worlds. So we are multidimensional beings having a three-dimensional experience, but our connection is multidimensional, and we are connected to these higher dimensions. Once in search for deep buried wisdom, I open the door that bars them from man. Called I from the other planes of being. Other planes, he's talking about other dimensions. One who was furrier than the daughters of men. I called her from out of the spaces. We're talking about dimensions. To shine as a light to the world of men. Use I the drum of the serpent. We're talking about knowledge and wisdom and a vibration. Wore I the robe of the purple and gold. Placed on my head, I, the crown of silver. Around me the circle of cinnabar shone. Raised I my arms and cried the invocation that opens a path to the planes beyond. This man is opening dimensions through cymatics coming out of his own voice. He's not using any type of technology. He's not using a large hadron collider at CERN like in Switzerland. This guy is doing this based on conscious, adept, initiate wisdom and knowledge, utilizing his own vocal box to create cymatic frequencies that hack space-time itself. Cried I to the lords of the signs in their houses, lords of the two horizons, watchers of the treble gates. Stand ye one at the right and one at the left, as the star rises to its throne and rules over his sign. Talking about star alignments now, constellations moving in correlation to the precession of the equinoxes. I, thou prince of Orulu, open the gates of the dim, hidden land, and release whom ye have imprisoned. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, dark lords of shining ones. And by their secret names which I know and can pronounce, hear ye and obey my will. Now he's commanding the darkness. Lit I then the flame of my circle, and called her in the space planes beyond. Daughter of light, return from Orulu. 7 times and 7 times have I passed through the fire, and found I have not eaten, water I have not drunk. I called thee from Orulu, from the realms of Urkeshko. I summon thee, Lady of Night. This is powerful stuff. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine 36,000 years ago? According to mainstream, we were like hunter-gatherers, just trying to find scraps on the ground and scavenging to eat, and trying to, group hunt mammoths and all this kind of crazy stuff, and living out of caves and everything else. And at the same time that's all supposed to be going on, this is being written. This is being written, right? So let me ask you this question based on bare bones logic. If you're living in a civilization where your main goal of the day is to survive and just find some type of food and shelter, Do you have time to write these kind of works of art? Do you have time to understand quantum physics, quantum mechanics, theoretical physics, philosophy, frequencies and vibrations? Do you have time for that? So something ain't adding up. Either some people came here with some real knowledge, or they don't want us to know that these people came here with the real knowledge, because they don't teach you this in school. Fear is the lord of the dark Arulu. Fear. Fear is the lord of the dark Arulu. To he who never faced dark fear, know that fear has existence, created by those who are bound by their fears. Shake off thy bondage, O children, and walk in the light of the glorious day. Fear, what does fear mean? What is fear an acronym of? False evidence appearing real. Fear is a choice. What do they pump on the news 24/7 on the mainstream news? They pump fear. What do they pump non-stop? Is fear, fear, fear. Why do they do that? Because fear puts you in a malleable state of mind so they can control you. But fear becomes your Lord. That means fear becomes your God. And you worship fear like you worship your God. But you're not aware that you're doing that until I just told you. When you're living in a state of fear, which is a low frequency, it becomes your Lord. Never turn thy thoughts into darkness, and surely ye shall be one with the light. Man is only what he believeth. Man is only what he believeth. A brother of darkness or a child of light. Which one are you? Are you darkness or are you light? If you believe you're light, then act like it. Drop the fear. Fear is a choice. False evidence appearing real. A brother of darkness or a child of light. Come through into the light, my children. Walk in the pathway that leads to the sun. The S-U-N, the sun. What did Thoth call himself? A son of Atlantis, spelled S-U-N. He also calls himself a son of man, an S-U-N of man. In the Bible, it's mistranslated as S-O-N by accident on purpose. When Jesus calls himself the son of man, he's calling himself the son, S-U-N, of man, just like Thoth is. Why would he do that? Because he learned this from the Egyptian mysteries, because he studied from Thoth directly when he went to live in Egypt. That's why he calls himself the son of man in the Bible. Nobody ever asked, why does he call himself the son of man? He's supposed to be the son of God. No, he's a son of man. S-U-N, a light. He's a beacon, right? He's a lighthouse in the darkness. Walk in the pathway that leads to the sun. Hark ye now, and list to the wisdom. Use thou the word I have given unto thee. Use it, and surely thou shalt find power and wisdom. Din Uru. And light to walk in the way. Seek thee and find the key I have given, and ever shalt thou be a child of the light. That was the key of time. Emerald tablet number 10 from my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. You know, the Emerald Tablets is really some deep, deep, deep wisdom and knowledge. You can't read them just once. You've got to read them dozens and dozens of times. And the more you read them, the more wisdom and knowledge you gain. ancient Mesopotamia. Now, Mesopotamia, if you don't know, that is where? That's a location where Iraq, Iran, and all those Middle Eastern countries are located right now. That's where this epic originated. The literary history of Gilgamesh begins with the Sumerian poems about Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, dating from the 3rd dynasty of Ur, you know? So we know that there's a ziggurat of Ur as well, and that's a giant step pyramid that exists right there in Iraq. As a matter of fact, there's a tunnel leading underneath the ziggurat of Ur all the way to the Giza Plateau in Egypt, which is in Africa. So we have 12 tablets here, okay? 12 amazing tablets of information that predate most texts that exist, especially the biblical text. We're gonna start with tablet number 1. He who has seen everything, I will make known. To the lands I will teach about him who experienced all things alike. Anu granted him the totality of knowledge of all. Now, who is Anu? A-N-U. Anu is the god or the king or the head person of the Anunnaki. Anu is the father of Enki and Enlil. Okay, he's the head, he's the leader. All right, so at the time he actually is the king. He's the king of Nibiru. Anu granted him the totality of knowledge of all. So we're talking about Gilgamesh being granted the ability to access a high level of knowledge. He saw the secret, discovered the hidden. He brought information of all time before the flood. This is a pre-diluvial text. We're talking about before the great flood, and you're gonna see in this later on, as I get to those later tablets, about Utnapishtim, who's actually the same person as Ziusudra, who really is Noah. And he's got to build this ark. And you're going to see some incredible information about this ark, and the shape of the ark doesn't match the shape of the biblical ark. He saw the secret, discovered the hidden. He brought information of the time before the flood. He went on a distant journey, pushing himself to exhaustion, but then was brought to peace. He carved on a stone stela all of his toils and built the wall of Uruk Haven, the wall of the sacred Eanna temple, the holy sanctuary. Look at this wall, which gleams with copper. Inspect its inner wall, the likes of which no one can equal. Take hold of the threshold stone. It dates from the ancient times. Go close the Eanna temple, the residence of Ishtar. Who is Ishtar? Ishtar is the reason why you celebrate Easter, okay? She was the fertility goddess in Babylonian times. And the actual holiday of Easter, which is celebrated mostly by Christians, is actually the celebration of fertility of Ishtar, the Babylonian Anunnaki goddess. This is why they have the eggs and the bunnies laying the eggs. It's a fertility thing. It has nothing to do with resurrections. So if you've been celebrating Easter all this time, you've been celebrating and you've been worshiping Ishtar. Okay? Now you know. Check this out. 1 league city, 1 league palm garden. So from the city, there's a league to the palm gardens. And from the palm gardens, there's another league to the lowlands, the open area of Ishtar temple. 3 leagues, and the open area of Uruk is the wall encloses. We're talking about a super megalithic wall that encloses this entire area. Now, Gilgamesh went through every hardship, supreme over other kings, lordly in appearance. He is the hero. He walks out in front, the leader, and walks in the rear, trusted by his champions. Mighty Net, protector of his people. Raging flood wave who destroys even the walls of stone. They're describing Gilgamesh now. So we're talking about the fact that this man, first of all, he's a giant. He's described as a giant. He's incredibly massive. This is a big, big person. You'll see, if you Google Gilgamesh or the Epic of Gilgamesh, you'll see that he's holding a lion in one arm across his chest, a full-size grown male lion with the mane and all. And it looks like a kitty cat in his arms almost. This is how big this guy was. But he has knowledge of how to build, how to construct, of advanced technology. He also has the capability of traveling, not around his local area, but around the world. Okay, around the world. He explored the world regions. He didn't explore around the corner. He didn't explore the next village. He explored the world. So every time we keep talking about these ancestors, man, and we think that they don't know anything and that they're dumb and what they say has no value, it's like spitting in their face. Seeking life. That was the reason why he was traveling the world, seeking life. It was he who reached by his own sheer strength, Upanishtim. We're talking about Noah now, the faraway, who restored the sanctuaries or cities that the flood destroyed. 2/3 of him is God, 1/3 of him is human. Now let me say that again. 2/3 of him is God, 1/3 of him is human. He's 2/3 Anunnaki and 1/3 human. If you want to understand the mix of his genetics and why he was so brilliant, why his IQ was so vast, why his strength and his size were incredible, and why he was considered to be a hero. He was mostly Anunnaki DNA. The great goddess Aru designed the model for his body. She prepared his form, beautiful and handsome of men, perfect. We're talking about the fact that they genetically created him. Now, they didn't create him from scratch as if they created a person out of nothing. But right now, today, and I have a friend who's done this with his first child, and he has a second child that they're going to do this as well. They create designer babies. He spent over $250,000 to make a designer baby. I mean, he's rich, he can do whatever he wants. They pick the hair color, they pick the eye color, they pick everything, okay? They also filter out potential genetic diseases and things like that, turn genes off, turn genes on to keep the person supposedly healthy for the most of their life. And that's something you can go do right now today in the world we live in. Well, they were doing this in ancient times. The great goddess Aruru designed the model for his body, prepared his form, beautiful and handsomest of men, perfect. Aruru washed her hands. She pinched off some clay and threw it into the wilderness. Now here's where it gets very interesting. In the wilderness, she created the valiant Enkidu. So now we're getting into some stuff that really is about genetics. Anu said, well, this guy, he's got to have a counterpart. If it's not going to be a woman, let him have a counterpart, because he wants to go on this hero's journey. He wants to keep traveling the world. Give him a companion to go with him. So they literally fashion a person. They create an entity which isn't really a human. It's more like a cyborg, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so she doesn't give birth to this thing. She creates it somewhere outside the gates of Uruk. And check this out. When Aruru heard this, she created within herself the Zikri of Anu. Aruru washed her hands. She pinched off some clay and threw it into the wilderness. In the wilderness, she created valiant Enkidu, born of silence, endowed with strength by Ninurta. His whole body was shaggy with hair. He had a full head of hair like a woman. His locks billowed in profusion like a shan. So he had dreadlocks. He knew neither peopled nor set a living. He didn't know human beings, and he didn't know anything about civilization or being civilized, all right? But wore a garment like Shamukan. He ate grasses with the gazelles and jostled at the watering hole with animals. As with animals, his thirst was staked by mere water. A notorious trapper came face to face with him opposite of the watering hole. At first, a second and a third day, he came back to face with him the opposite, wearing the watering hole and at the watering hole. On seeing him, the trapper's face went stark with fear, and he, Enkidu, and his animals drew back home. He was rigid with fear. Though stock still, his heart pounded with his face drained of color. He was miserable to the core, and his face looked like one who had made a long journey. The trapper addressed with his father, saying, "Father, a certain fellow has come from the mountains. He is the mightiest in the land. His strength is as mighty as the meteorite of Anu. He continually goes over the mountains. He continuously jostles at the watering place with the animals. He continually plants his feet opposite of the watering place. I was afraid, so I did not go to him. He filled in the pits that I had dug, wrenched out my traps that I had spread, released from my grasp the wild animals. He does not let me make my rounds in the wilderness. The trapper's father spoke to him, saying, My son, there lives in Uruk a certain Gilgamesh. There is no one stronger than he. He is as strong as the meteorite of Anu. Go set off to Uruk. Tell Gilgamesh of this man and might. He will give you the harlot Shamat. Then take her with you. The woman will overcome the fellow as if he were strong. When the animals are drinking at the water place, have her take her robe off and expose her sex. When he sees her, he will draw near to her, and his animals will grow up in the wilderness, and he will be alien to him. He heeded his father's advice. The trapper went off to Uruk. He made the journey, stood inside of Uruk, and declared to Gilgamesh, There is a certain fellow who has come from the mountains. He is the mightiest in the land. His strength is mighty as the meteorite of Anu. He continually goes over the mountains. He continuously jostles the watering place with the animals. He continually plants his feet opposite the watering place. I was afraid, so I did not go up to him. He filled in the pits that I had dug. He wrenched out my traps that I had spread, released from my grasp the wild animals. He does not let me make my rounds in the wilderness. Gilgamesh said to the trapper, Go, trapper, bring the harlot Shamat with you. When the animals are drinking at the watering place, have her take off her robe and expose her sex. When he sees her, he will draw near to her, and the animals who grew up in the wilderness will be alien to him. Obviously, they're taking this female named Shamat, and they're going to have her literally just seduce this guy so that they can get him away from the trap, so this hunter can continue to hunt and bring meat home for the village, which is probably his main source of income. Okay. The trapper went, bringing the harlot Shamat with him. They set off on the journey, making direct way. On the third day, they arrived at the appointed place, and the trapper and the harlot sat down at their posts. A first day and the second, they sat opposite the watering hole. The animals arrived and drank at the watering hole. Then he, Enkidu, offspring of the mountains, who eats grasses with the gazelles, came to drink at the watering hole with the animals. When the wild beast he staked with water, then Shamat saw him, a primitive, a savage fellow from the depths of the wilderness. That is he, Shamat. Release your clenched arms, expose your sex so he can take in your voluptuousness. Do not be restrained, take his energy. He's basically saying, he's basically pimping this lady to this wild created man, saying they gotta go take one for the team so we can get back to work. Okay? She says, do not be restrained, take his energy. When he sees you, he will draw near to you. Spread out your robe so he can lie upon you and perform his primitive task of womankind. His animals, who grew up in the wilderness, will become alien to him, and his lust will groan over you. Shamat unclutched her bosom, exposed her sex, and he took in her voluptuousness. She was not restrained, but took his energy. She spread out her robe and lay upon her. She performed the primitive task of womankind. His lust groaned over her. For 6 days and 7 nights, Enkidu stayed aroused. Okay, this guy was aroused for 6 days and 7 nights. And had intercourse with the harlot until he was sated with her charms. But when he turned his attention to his animals, the gazelle saw Enkidu and darted off. The wild animals distanced themselves from his body. Enkidu was utterly depleted. His knees wanted to go off with his animals, went rigid. Enkidu was diminished. His running was not as before. His legs were weak. And it's six days, and who knows how many rounds he went. Okay. But then he drew himself up, for his understanding had broadened. Turning around, he sat down at the harlot's feet, gazing into her face, his ears attentive as the harlot spoke. The harlot said to Enkidu, "You are beautiful, Enkidu. You are become like a god. Why do you gallop around in the wilderness with the wild beast? Come, let me bring you to Uruk Haven, to the holy temple, the residence of Anu and Ishtar, the place of Gilgamesh, who is wise to perfection." Now, what's interesting here, I want to point out, is she's going to take this Enkidu person back to Uruk Haven. All right, so we're talking about going back to the kingdom. At this kingdom, Anu himself is living amongst people. One of these quote unquote gods of the tablets, and I do mean lowercase g gods, they masqueraded as gods, and his goddess Ishtar are actually living in a temple amongst regular people. So these people engaged mankind in ancient times in a way where we worshiped them, we honored them, we brought them our offerings. We thought they were real gods. They were just masquerading as gods. They weren't gods. They weren't the creator of the universe, and they themselves knew this. When is the perfect time to approach a species on a planet? When they're in their developmental stages and they're very low. If you want to violate any universal laws of engagement, which I believe that these Anunnaki beings did, if you want to violate, universal laws of engagement, you want to take advantage of a situation due to ignorance of the being or the species on a planet, you luck out if you arrive when they're in the Stone Ages. You really luck out, because then you can mold them however you want. You can get them to become your slaves without them thinking they're slaves, because they'll believe you're a god. And that's exactly what happened. She says, the residence of Anu and Ishtar, the place of Gilgamesh, who is wise to perfection, but who struts his power over the people like a wild bull. What she kept saying found favor with him. Becoming aware of himself, he sought a friend. This Enkidu now realizes knowledge of self. He didn't see himself as an animal anymore. He's beginning to see himself as a sentient being. And so now he's going to head off to this kingdom with this harlot. Enkidu spoke to the harlot, "Come, Shamat, take me away with you to the sacred holy temple, the residence of Anu and Ishtar, the place of Gilgamesh, who is wise to perfection, but who struts his power over the people like a wild bull. I will challenge him. Let me shout out in Uruk, I am the mighty one. Lead me in, and I will change the order of things. He whose strength is mightiest is the one born in the wilderness." So now he sees a challenge here. Shamat says to Enkidu, "Come, let us go, so he may see your face. I will lead you to Gilgamesh. I know where he will be. Look about, Enkidu, inside Uruk Haven, where the people show off in skirted finery, where every day is a day for some festival, where the lyre and the drum play continually, where harlots stand about pretty, excluding voluptuousness, full of laughter, and on the couch of the night of the sheets are spread. Enkidu, you who do not know how to live, I will show you Gilgamesh, a man of extreme feelings. Look at him, gaze in his face. He is a handsome youth with freshness. His entire body exudes voluptuousness. He is mightier and more strength than you, without sleeping a day or night. He's saying that Gilgamesh is so huge and powerful that this guy doesn't even need to go to sleep, and he still has the most power, or is the strongest being that they know of in that city, in that kingdom. Enkidu, it is your wrong thoughts you must change. It is Gilgamesh whom Shamat loves. And Anu, Enlil, and La have enlarged his mind, even before you came from the mountain. So what she's saying is, Gilgamesh's mind, his mind had been expanded. His knowledge and wisdom had been expanded. He had taken in so much knowledge from who? Anu, his son Enlil, who was also known as Yahweh in the Bible, and La. Okay, they were talking about three people that have extremely high knowledge in the Sumerian tablets, have taken Gilgamesh in as an adept initiate and given him a supreme amount of knowledge, making him one of the wisest men on the planet. So she says, Gilgamesh got up and revealed the dream, saying to his mother, "Mother, I had a dream last night. Stars of the sky appeared, and some kind of meteorite of Anu fell next to me. I tried to lift it, but it was too mighty for me. I tried to turn it over, but it could not budge. The land of Uruk was standing around it. The whole land had assembled about it. The populace was thronging around it. The men clustered about it and kissed its feet as if it were a little baby. I loved it and embraced it as a wife. I laid down at your feet, and you made it complete with me." The mother of Gilgamesh, the wise, all-knowing, said to her lord, Riamat Ninsun, the wise, all-knowing, said to Gilgamesh, "As for the stars of the sky that appeared, and the meteorite of Anu which fell next to you, you tried to lift it, but it was too mighty for you. You tried to turn it over, but it was unable to budge. You laid it down at my feet, and I made it complete with you. And you loved and embraced it as a wife. There will come to you a mighty man, a comrade who saves his friend." So there's a prophecy coming out of this dream, and his mother is literally discerning his dream and giving him this prophecy, what's to happen and why he had this dream. To come to him is going to be a mighty man who's going to become a comrade and saves his life. He is the mightiest in the land. He is the strongest. His strength is mighty as the meteorite of Anu. You loved him and embraced him as a wife. And it is he who will repeatedly save you. Your dream is good and portuous. A second time, Gilgamesh said to his mother, "Mother, I have had another dream. At the gate of my martial chamber, there lay an axe, and people had collected about it. The land of Uruk was standing around it. The whole land assembled about it. The populace was thronging around it. I laid it down at your feet. I loved it and embraced it as a wife, and you made it complete with me." The mother of Gilgamesh, the wise, all-knowing, said to her son, Rimat Ninsun, the wise, all-knowing, said to Gilgamesh, "The axe that you saw is a man, that you love him and embrace as a wife, but that I have been complete with you. There will come to you a mighty man, a comrade who saves his friend. He is the mightiest in the land. He is the strongest. He is as mighty as the meteorite of Anu." Gilgamesh spoke to his mother, saying, "By the command of Enlil, the great counselor, so may it to pass." Okay? So now he's saying is, wow, Mom, these two dreams, you're telling me what this is leading to. Someone that's coming that I'm gonna be a really close friend with, that's gonna save my life. That is a super mighty person, maybe even potentially mightier than me. And so this is the prophecy coming from Rimat Ninsun, his mother. So it goes on saying, "By the command of Enlil, great counselor, so it too may pass. May I have a friend and advisor. A friend and advisor may I have. You have interpreted for me the dreams about him." Another harlot recounted the dreams of Gilgamesh to Enkidu. The two of them made love. So the harlot is still messing around with Enkidu. I mean, Enkidu is getting a lot of you-know-what. I guess after living with the animals all that time, his time came. Time came due. We're talking about a great epic here that was written almost 5,000 years ago, 4,700 roughly years ago, right? We're talking about Gilgamesh, a mighty man. All right. A mighty man that was fashioned, that was created, not created from scratch as if somebody had magic, but he was a genetically created person using designer technology, just like we have designer babies right now. We're going to go in for a little while about the book of Enoch. Make sure you guys click that like button so we can get the algorithm. Click the like button. And also, please, if you can, share the video, okay? Share the video, click the like button. I'm going to be talking about the book of Enoch tonight, all right? The book of Enoch. I'll describe to you who Enoch was and everything else. If you look into the dogma of the Christian belief system, they praise Enoch for being so holy and so, so good to God that he was taken away and straight to heaven. He didn't have to die. He went straight into heaven and he never came back. That's what they preach to you, right? They tell you that this guy was just, a real good guy, and he did everything that God wanted, and he was without sin, and he was so incredible that, hey, just take him straight to heaven. Just bypass the whole death process. Just go ahead and take him to heaven. And they'll teach you that in Sunday school, right? And so that's the story that you get, but that's not the actual true story. Not the true story. It's quite interesting that Enoch is highly, highly, highly revered in the biblical text. However, his own book, look at all this information in here, was left out of the Bible. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think Enoch's text was left out of the canonized Bible? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's talking about these people behind me. That's why. The book of Enoch. It's an ancient Jewish religious text traditionally ascribed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. Now, who is Noah? We know now, because I've been reading the Epic of Gilgamesh, that Noah is actually Ziusudra. Okay? That's his real name, Ziusudra, before it was converted to the name of Noah in more recent texts. His original name is Ziusudra, or even in some, depending on which version of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Akkadian or Babylonian, it could be Utnapishtim. Okay? Ziusudra is the most commonly known name, but Enoch is the great-grandfather of the person that was actually given the instructions on how to build a ship to be saved from the flood. Now, this ship that he actually built, we discover in the Sumerian tablets, is not a gigantic boat like what they have been preaching to you in Sunday school. He was given the instructions, and how do I know this? Well, the tablet is actually in the British Museum. He was given the instructions on how to build a gigantic round disc submersible, or maybe it flew, I don't know. We don't know, nobody knows. And it was cut up into sections like a pie on the inside. And he was told to put his local flora and fauna and his local livestock in that disc. He never built a gigantic ship. Not once did he build a ship. That is false information. Not once did 2 parakeets and 2 lions and 2 deer and 2 cockroaches and 2 fleas and 2 ticks and all this come on the boat. Didn't happen, okay? I'm just telling you right now, it did not happen. He was literally told to get his local flora and fauna and his local livestock and take on this disc that was cut up into sections like a pie on the inside, but it was a sealed disc, like a saucer, okay? That's what he was in. And we know this for an absolute fact now. There's no way to get around it. There's absolutely no way to get around it. And, they show in the movies, they got, that one movie, that Noah movie, they got, every kind of animal and you got 2 flies and, I mean, come on, guys. 2 piranha. I mean, get out of here. It didn't happen, okay? It just didn't happen. Let's get into the real knowledge, all right? Let's just drop the fairy tales and get to the real knowledge. So Enoch is the great grandfather. Now, what's important here is we're aligning a man who has directly interacted with these advanced beings. Now we know his own descendant also interacted with these advanced beings, as he was given the actual instructions on how to build this from Enki, one of these Anunnaki people. Enki saved him and his family's life by teaching him how to build this particular disc-shaped floating device, if whatever you want to call it, right? This DNA bank, if maybe it was that. But we see a direct connection between Enoch and Ziusudra, who's actually now called Noah in more modern texts, because the Bible is New Age information, not Old Age, it's New Age. So it's interesting that connection, that lineage is there. Two people, same bloodline, both being directly engaged by these beings. I can remember being a kid in elementary school having to hide underneath my work desk. They would make us go underneath the work desk to do practice for if a nuclear bomb went off, as if my work desk was going to protect me from a nuclear blast. So you go underneath the desk and you ball up like you're an embryo underneath your desk in case a nuclear blast goes off. You know, that was the Cold War. So I grew up during the Cold War era. 70s and 80s, right? The tech is still there. There are literally tens of thousands of nukes on this planet right now today, tens of thousands of them. And the sad part is, they're not on this planet to protect us from an outside invader. They're on this planet to destroy us while we're still on the planet. We haven't even left the planet. We can't even escape. It's here to destroy us while we're standing on the ground. Can you imagine being an advanced alien race flying by this planet and you use your scanners and oh man, they've learned how to split the atom. Oh, they've got an arsenal down there. Wow, they're really ready to protect themselves. Oh wait, let me hack these and check the trajectory of these intercontinental ballistic missiles that they've created. Oh my goodness, they're set to blow up their own selves while they're on the same planet. Don't stop here. This is a ghetto. It's a ghetto. Come on, man. And so now what do we have that, besides the nukes, now we have other types of weapons, digital weapons, right? We haven't even began to put any type of restraint on the release of the amount of AI and robotics that's going on. I love the AI stuff in robotics. I think it could help mankind significantly. But I think in the way it's being released, not too safe. I just read an article that the US military at DARPA, or the DARPA program for the US military, has literally just developed the very first fighter jet that runs purely on AI and put it into a dogfight. They put it into a dogfight. So it's a fly-by-wire fighter jet, which means it's on the grid. We're talking about Skynet now, but Skynet with a consciousness. Isn't that the movie Terminator? Didn't we already watch that movie Terminator? We didn't learn anything from the Hollywood movie. It was a documentary, and now we're living it in real time. We got to be careful. All this tech that we keep getting, way before we are consciously ready to even handle it. We're not spiritually ready to handle a lot of this technology. During the full moon, which is totally predictable, do you know that police stations ramp up and have more policemen on staff that night? And the emergency room at hospitals have more staff that night on a full moon? Do you know why? Because on full moons, there's going to be more activity with crime and with injuries, either stemming from crime or other, maybe more car accidents or whatever, on the night of full moon. Full moons directly affect human consciousness, directly. And so you have the consequences of all these teachings that these beings did. I don't call them angels because they're not angels. They're not angels in my book. The knowledge imparted by the watchers leads to increased sinfulness and corruption among humanity, according to the book of Enoch. The text portrays this dissemination of forbidden knowledge as one of the key factors leading to the moral decay and the eventual decision of God to bring about the great flood in the form of a divine retribution. Now think about this for a minute. Let's go. We got to have a conversation. I'm almighty. I'm all knowledgeable. I'm all knowing. I'm Alpha and Omega. I'm the beginning and the end. I think and things come into existence. I breathe and wind blows and I snap my fingers and I create multiverses and all this good stuff. And I got a couple of bad apples that just don't want to listen to what I have to say. So they break my rules and they go to this planet Earth and they start teaching people how to, do things and gave them a little bit too much knowledge. And because of this knowledge, they start acting up too. You know what? Instead of me going down there and setting everything straight and doing some real teachings, doing some workshops, I think I just, go ahead and wash the whole planet away. Just flood it. Just kill everybody. Just kill as many people as I possibly can and see if I can start over like a fresh slate, because I'm God and it'd be just too easy for me to snap my fingers or go down there and teach. So I think what I will do is I'll just destroy and kill everybody. Women, children, everybody. Just kill them all. Come on, man. Stop it. Stop it. Come on. It's ridiculous. That's why I'm laughing. And it's ridiculous. So do all the pastors listening to me right now. It's an absolute farce. It's a farce because you're saying in one moment, this being is so powerful, it can control everything with a single thought and a snap of a finger or one spoken word. And on the other hand, the being is so helpless that the best it can do is hurl a rock into the planet and hope that floods the planet and kills everybody. Come on, man. Which one is it? Is the being all powerful, all knowing, all knowledgeable? Or is he, always a man, or is he weak and only has enough power to do a couple things like kill people? Because when you read this Bible, there's one thing that's guaranteed you'll find out when you go through this Bible like I have. God kills over 3 million people in the Bible. The devil kills nobody. He kills nobody. Satan kills nobody. God kills 3 million. Think about that. That's why in the book of Isaiah, God says, let me read the exact verse for you. That way you know what? I know y'all think I'd be playing when I be talking, when giving you guys these verses, okay? I'm gonna give you the exact verse. It's in Isaiah. This is funny. Isaiah 45:7. That's where you're going. God says, I create the good and I create the evil. Doeth I, saith the Lord. He didn't say Satan made the evil. He didn't say, oh, that doggone Satan, he's creating all the evil in the world. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. He literally said, I create the good and I create the evil. And you know what? He damn right, because he killed 3 million people in that Bible. The best he can do is hurl a rock at the planet and try to kill as many as he possibly can. It's always a he, by the way. It's always amazing that it's always a dude, right? It's always a dude. It's always a dude. I don't know. To me, God is a frequency. It's our job to tune in. So that's what happens. Pretty interesting, right? The punishment to the watchers is, as the result of their actions, the watchers are judged by the archangels and are subjected to severe punishments. They are bound and cast into the abyss, a form of imprisonment and torment, as a penalty for their disobedience and negative impact on humanity. So the humans got to die in the flood, but these people, they don't die. They just get kind of bound into some kind of a chamber where they can't get out. If they're not killed, they're put into some kind of prison. But the people They got to suffer and drown to death, babies and all. Right? This is what they're telling you. And like I said, if you really go into the text, you discover something very interesting, that Enoch wasn't taken by God. He was taken by people. And he wasn't just taken once, he was taken more than once. You're taught in Bible study that he was taken to heaven on a chariot, never to return again. He was taken straight to heaven. He bypassed death. Not according to the book of Enoch, where he actually has a conversation with the beings that are going to take him on this trip to teach him knowledge. This teaching is approved and this trip is actually approved. And it's given a set day that they're going to leave on this trip. He even gets his affairs in order and has his sons prepared for the day that he's going to leave. In the book of Enoch, the narrative of Enoch being taken into the sky or the heavens is one of the key elements of the text. The ascension is portrayed as an extraordinary event where Enoch is granted divine visions and insights, setting the stage for the detailed revelations that follow in the book. In his ascension to heaven, Enoch's ascension is described across several passages in the book of Enoch. He is taken up into the heavens multiple times, each providing different experiences and revelations. In other words, different things he's being taught, different knowledge that he's been given on different trips, multiple, not even double, but multiple means more than two. In his initial ascension, Enoch describes how he was taken up into the heavens on the clouds and the wind in the sky bore him aloft. Well, that sounds quite a bit like flying in some type of a vessel. The ascension is often seen in his initial introduction into the celestial realms, and during this time he visits various places in the heavens and earth, including the places where the heavenly bodies, stars, sun, and moon are regulated. Oh, he's in outer space, guys. One of the earliest accounts of a planned alien abduction. Visions of the heavens. As Enoch ascends, he is shown the treasures of the stars and the thunder. Among other secretive and sacred places of the heavens, he witnessed the workings of the natural world from a divine perspective. So he's looking at the earth from atop, and he describes it as a giant ball. Understanding the operation of the cosmos, the weather patterns, and other natural phenomena from above, looking down on the planet. He's seeing the clouds from the other side. See, this isn't a story about some heavenly father, a sky daddy with a magic wand, whisking away a good human into heaven. It's a story of advanced beings with advanced technology that's capable of space travel, taking a man from the earth into space and teaching him things. This is why the book of Enoch is not in the Bible. Then you have the revelation of secrets. Throughout his heavenly journey, Enoch is also shown secrets that are not known to other humans. He's given forbidden knowledge. These include ultimate judgments of the angels and humans, hidden paths of the stars. He's given star maps, and the storehouses of life and rain, which are meant to explain both cosmic and earthly operations from a divine standpoint. He's given the information and knowledge how to predict weather patterns on Earth. That's what the book of Enoch is all about. These are the facts. Why am I doing this? Because I know most people will never get a chance to go through this. But if you do, you'll find everything I'm talking about is right in this book, the book of Enoch. One of the most revered people in the biblical text, whose book was omitted by the Council of Nicaea. Why? We don't want to tell them about these aliens taking people into space and teaching them how to kill each other, make weapons and all of this, and how they lusted after our women. No. Let's keep that on the outside. Just keep it on the outside. That's why. You know, the thing about knowledge is it has no power. Only if you apply it, it has power. The application of knowledge is power, but knowledge alone is not power. So now that you've got some knowledge, right? Now that you have some knowledge, what are you going to do with it? You have it in here, But if it stays in there, it's like putting your talents underneath a rock. Just like that parable in the Bible. Oh yeah, I read the Bible. Don't get, I got my Bible right here. See? I had this Bible since, what's the original date I had this? I got this Bible in 1998. 1998. And it kept it in great condition considering how much I've gone through it. Don't put your talents underneath the rock. See, I'm intelligent because I know how to take good information from this book. I can take good information from the Quran. I can take good information from the Apocrypha. I could take good information from the Enuma Elish. I could take good information from the Bhagavad Gita. I could take good information from the Sefer Yetzirah. I could take good information from the Nag Hammadi scripts. I can put it all together. I can keep going if I were you. I can keep going. The difference between being super intelligent and being ignorant is your ability to take information from multiple sources and connect the dots, but also to know and discern what to utilize and what to discard. That's what makes you super intelligent. Literally. When you get to that level, it's a high level. It don't mean you fully made it, because I didn't fully make it yet. But I tell you what, I'm on my damn way. Learning is a lifelong process, but you got to be able to connect the dots. And let me tell you something, there's good information in this book. Don't get me wrong now, don't get me twisted. There's good information in that book that you can apply to your life. And if you apply some of those things to your life, you're going to get a good result. Period. It's a fact. Not all of it's trash. A lot of it's just remixed ancient text. But there's good information that you can actually utilize and apply in your life in that Bible. Quran as well. Nag Hammadi scriptures as well. I mean, I can keep going on and on and on. I have over 1,500 books in this house alone. And I know what's in every single book. You got to take time and energy to put into the things that are important. Everyone does that for whatever's important to them. For me, the knowledge is what's important to me. That's what's important to me, the knowledge. And understanding how I can apply it and how I can actually use it. That's what's important to me. You see? That's what's important to me. Now, what is the Sumerian kings list? It's an incredible list of kings that ruled on planet Earth long ago. We're talking about very long ago. That time period or that time frame got put into dogma, into religious systems, and then they now say the planet's only that old. It's a farce and it's a joke, because we know we found things on this planet hundreds of thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands, and even millions of years old. But the Sumerian kings list is incredible because it records the names of these kings. It records how long each king ruled, and it records the city that they ruled from. Okay? It records the city that they actually ruled from. Think about that. So we're talking about a high level of information. We're talking about a real account. And then when we go back, we meaning archaeologists, to the names of these places in Mesopotamia, which is now modern day Middle East, Iraq, Iran, Tehran, and all these places, guess what we discover? We discover remnants of those ancient cities. They actually existed. We can see the remnant structures in the ground, buried by sand, some sticking up above the sand, some underneath the sand, discovered through ground penetrating radar and LiDAR and everything else. So we know that these structures in these cities did exist, and the evidence, the physical evidence of them is still here today. I'm talking about everything through Assyria, Akkadian, Babylonian, Persian, all of that, Turkey. But I want to talk about the Sumerian kings list because this is the most accurate list of kings in procession that exist with these extensive lifespans. The Egyptian kings list actually only picked up around the 3rd dynasty because a lot of the information had kind of been lost. We kind of got the names here and there. We kind of got the dates through estimates of star alignments and some other accounts. But the Sumerian kings list, right down the line, okay? Right down the line. And what's incredible about this is you discover that they even let some women rule at some point. So some women even had kingship over the planet. It's not ruling over a specific region of the earth, but over planet Earth itself. But let me show you a picture. Now, where can you find this Sumerian kings list, these mythical tablets? Well, there's only one, and that actually is located, the original is located at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. So I took a trip there myself, and this is the photo, the Sumerian kings list translation. In the following translation, we're going to be going over the Sumerian kings list located in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. And it begins here. After the kingship descended from heaven, they're talking about kingship used to be in heaven. Now, in these ancient references where you see heaven, they're not talking about heaven where the pearly white gates are. They're talking about heaven as meaning above the earth. And everywhere you see the word heaven, they're talking about these kingdoms that exist outside of Earth's atmosphere. After kingship had descended from heaven, meaning that kingship was being ruled from space, not from the planet itself. And we know that the Sumerian god Anu, A-N-U, who was the head god at one point, he didn't like coming down to the planet's surface. He preferred to rule from the sky. After the kingship descended from heaven, kingship was in Iridug. In Iridug, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Think about that. They record these years in shars. A shar is 3,600 years. His total amount of years combined, according to these people, was 28,800. One man. That's just the time he ruled. How about how long did he actually live? They had access to monoatomic gold, colloidal silver, the elixir of life that they always talk about in these tablets. They knew how to transfer their mind from one body to the next. They knew how to create clones of their own body in something called the halls of Amenti in rejuvenation chambers and transfer from body to body, living amongst men but unlike men, giving the impression to the people that they were eternal, that they were immortal. Then what happens? Alajar ruled for 36,000 years. The two kings, they ruled for 64,800 years. Then Eridug fell, and the kingship was taken to Batabiera. In Batabiera, Enmen Luana ruled for 43,200 years. One person, 43,200. They didn't have the telomeres capped. Their telomeres aren't capped. We know that there was a genetic mutation to mankind around 200,000 years ago where telomere number, chromosome number 2 was taken out, fused together, and 2 telomere caps were put on this chromosome, one on each side. And the telomere was capped, meaning once it runs out of genetic buffer material, you begin the death process. Well, we know for a fact that prior to that, there's recordings of humans, Homo sapiens like us, living for way more than 60, 70, 80 years. But with the cap, the maximum lifespan is 120 years. And what did they find out at Harvard University? The maximum lifespan of a human being under the most pristine conditions and health is about 120 years. Even Star Trek copied that same thing because they've got the right conditions there in that particular century. So the maximum lifespan of a human being in the Star Trek series is 120 years. We know that he ruled for 43,200 years. Enmen Galana ruled for 28,800 years. Demuzid, the shepherd, ruled for 36,000 years. In one city they ruled this long. 3 kings, they ruled for 108,000 years. Then Batabiera fell, which means the end of that, it was the end of that reign. Somebody else had to take over in some other place. And the kingship was taken to Zimbir. In Zimbir, Enmendirana became king. He ruled for 21,000 years. One king, he ruled for 21,000 years. Then Zimbir fell, and the kingship was taken to Surapag. In Surapag, Ubar Tutu became king, and he ruled for 18,600 years. One king. In 5 cities, 8 kings ruled for 241,200 years. Then the flood swept over the land. They didn't want you to know that people came here that looked like us, but that really weren't quite us. That not only did they come here, but they developed a breakaway civilization on Earth and they ruled here. But here you have a physical, actual piece of evidence. And then we can track back and we know these cities were real. And they're trying to say the Earth is 5,000 to 6,000 years old. Are you kidding me? Now, the flood swept over the land. So what happened was, after the flood swept over the land, they said, we got to change this up now. Now, first of all, when this flood came, this was a situation that was even talked about in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, where there was a global flood. As a matter of fact, in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which I talk about in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, you can get it on Amazon or forbiddenknowledge.com. Thoth, in the opening scene, is talking to his father about the flood is finally beginning to subside, and that the rush of fountains have slowed down, and that ancient temples are coming up out of the mud. And his dad tells him to get a crew together and go to the land of Kem and rebuild civilization. So we know that this flood is real, and we have a flood account in every single civilization on every continent, every ancient culture on the planet. I believe there were potentially more than just one flood. Some were regional, some were global. We're talking about a massive flood. And in the Sumerian tablets, according to the tablets, the reason for the flood could have been stopped. But Enlil was so disgusted with human beings, if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Epic of Atrahasis, he was so disgusted he wanted to wipe out the creation and begin anew, start over. He was like, let's wipe him out and start fresh. And his relatives, Enki and Hersag and everyone else, they were pissed. They were like wailing to please don't do this. But he was the king at the time, so he had the right to allow this to happen. And he did. And so what Enki did was he contacted some of his people on Earth and said, look, there's a situation about to go down and I need you guys to be prepared for this. So I'm going to give you these floor plans and I need you to build this structure. I can't do it for you because it's going to look really suspect if I do it, but I'm going to give you these instructions and allow you to go ahead and if you listen to me, you'll escape this calamity. So he went to Ziusudra, AKA Noah in the Bible, but his name is Ziusudra, and he gave him the plans how to build an ark. It wasn't the shape of the one described in the Bible. It is actually the shape of a disc. And this tablet has been discovered. It was discovered about 4.5 years ago, and it's now public knowledge. Just look for the Ark of Ziusudra stone tablet discovered. It was cut up into sections like a pie on the inside, and his instructions were to gather up his local flock and any local animals and flora that was in the area and take on the ark with him, some meals and so forth and some water and everything else, right? Not to get 2 of every kind from around the planet. 2 cockroaches and 2 fleas and 2 lizards and 2 false information, fake news. Didn't happen. And we have the physical tablet. We have the physical evidence of the tablet, which gave the instructions on what to build. It was a disc, almost looking like a UFO shape, not a big giant boat that they've been teaching y'all for generations and generations. Fake news. It's fake news. They taught you a bunch of lies. So after the flood had swept over and the kingship had descended from heaven, the kingship was in Kik. In Kik, Jakur became king. He ruled for 1,200 years. Kulusiana Bel ruled for 960 years. Then it says, Nanjik Likima ruled for 670 years. And Taraana ruled for 420 years and 3 months and 3.5 days. Why give such an exact time period when you have to now etch all of this into stone? Do you see there's no logic behind that? The reason why this was done or why this was recorded is because it happened. And Taraana ruled for 420 years, 3 months and 3.5 days. And that was a woman. So there's a record here of a woman ruling for 420 years in these tablets. Babum ruled for 300 years. Zukakip ruled for 900. And then you have Atab, who ruled for 600 years. Makta, the son of Atab, ruled for 840 years. Aruim, the son of Makata, ruled for 720 years. Etana the shepherd, who ascended to heaven and consolidated all the foreign countries, became king, and he ruled for 1,500 years. He consolidated all, not some, not a few. He consolidated all of the foreign countries. He made one giant kingdom and became king and ruled for 1,500 years. We know that it's real. We know that these cities are real. Why isn't this being taught anywhere? because it breaks down dogma. It breaks down falsehoods. It breaks down fake news. That's why. It destroys it. This one tablet will destroy any religion. This one tablet destroys any religion. Look at this. Bali, the son of Etana, ruled for 400 years. These people understood the longevity of life. Enmenuna ruled for 660 years. Melemkik, the son of Enmenuna, ruled for 900 years. 1,560 are the years of the dynasty of Enmenuna. Tizar, the son of Zamug, ruled for 305 years. Iku ruled for 900 years. Itasadum ruled for 1,200 years. Enmeg-Barajesi, who made the land of Elam submit, became king, and he ruled for 900 years. Aga, the son of Enmen-Baresi, ruled for 625 years. 1,525 are the years of the dynasty of Enmeg-Barasi. 23 kings, they ruled for 24,510 years, 3 months, and 3.5 days. Then Kik was defeated, and the kingship was taken to Eana. Do you see the detail in this? Do you see how intricate this is? How much effort had been put into this information? So, this text is really incredible because it's so ancient. And this version of the Sumerian tablets, of this King's List, the Sumerian King's List in this tablet, is copied from even an older tablet. And that previous one was copied from even an older tablet. And that one was copied from even an older tablet. So we're looking at a copy of text that goes back, who knows how many hundreds of thousands of years. You're looking at some of the oldest account in the world of people who came from another place, not from Earth, and created a breakaway civilization, and then began to rule over this planet. It comes down to a point where they begin to give kingship over to humans. It comes to a point post-diluvial, after the flood, where they say, okay, there's a lot of people on this planet now. And now we're going to begin to have a liaison between us and the human race. So we're going to have a person, and that go-between is a person that's going to be half human and half Anunnaki. In this case, these Anunnaki beings created an Atlantean civilization. So it'll be a demigod, half human, half Anunnaki. And so the original pharaohs were kings. They were the liaisons between these gods who wanted to see their will imposed on the land and the masses. Where the kingship years are really dropping. And by the time it gets to the end, they begin to live shorter lifespans. So now, this is me. I'm standing inside of the Temple of Seti in a hallway that leads towards the Temple of Osiris, or the Osirian. And in this incredible, super ancient hallway, on one side is the original Egyptian King's List that's used to make all text based off of Egyptian King's List pretty much in the world. If you're looking at the screen, it would be to your right. If you're facing away from the screen, it would be to the left. On the left side are giant representations of the Netiru, the ancient gods that came to Earth during the time of Zep Tepi and turned mud into a kingdom. That's what they said there, not me. They said the Nitiru came from outside of this earth and they came down to the ground, and after the flood, they turned mud into a kingdom. The Emerald Tablets says the same thing. When they saw the temples, when Thoth saw the temples rising up out of the mud, they decided to go to the land of Chem and rebuild civilization. Same thing. Same story, different tablets, different time periods, same story. The Dogon tribe right now are in Mali, Africa. Now, what's interesting about the Dogon tribe is they literally were the original inhabitants of pre-dynastic Egypt, or AKA the land of Kemet, okay? They were the people that were inhabiting the land of Kemet, and they were the people that had, and still do, have significant knowledge that has baffled scientists for 44 or 5 decades now since they've learned about them. And so the Dogon tribe, we can date back to at least 7,200 to 7,300 years that they were already in Kemet before it was called. Long before it was called. Egypt is a fairly new name. It's a Greek name. The land of Kemet, okay? And so you had Kemet, and later on, Kemet got broken up to Egypt and Nubia, which are still really the same damn place. But the Dogons had a significant knowledge of the universe. And scientists were baffled because some of the knowledge that the Dogon tribe had, modern science hadn't even acquired yet. They knew about a trinary star system located in Sirius. 3 stars orbiting each other. They knew that one of the stars, Sirius B, had literally lived its full lifespan and ran out of fuel. Some stars, when they run out of fuel, they'll actually explode, okay, and turn into a supernova. It depends on how much mass the star has. Some stars aren't big enough to go supernova, like our star, the star we have that we orbit. This is why creating a breakaway civilization and leaving your star to go somewhere else and create a breakaway civilization is the norm for any advanced race of people, which is exactly what happened here. And we have the evidence in writing carved and etched into stone all over this planet, etched into stone, saying that's exactly what happened. The Dogon tribe, what did they say? You want to have pride in your ancestors? You want to feel good about your ancestors? Well, don't spit in their face then when they tell you that the Nomo came from another star named Sirius B and brought them advanced knowledge of the universe. They came from space to this planet and sat with these people and taught them about star systems, planetary alignments. They taught them about every single planet in our solar system, the shape, the size, the color, the orbital periods, the equatorial periods, everything going on within our solar system and beyond. They had this advanced knowledge and still have it till this very day. They have this special ritual called the Ziggy, where they put these masks on and they do these alignment rituals only when specific stars and planets are aligned in space. And they do this with no telescope. And they know about these orbital periods of trinary star systems with no telescope. By the way, Sirius B can't even be seen by the naked eye on a great night. Because it's a failed star, it ran out of fuel, it became a white dwarf. Just like our sun is going to become a white dwarf, which is the point I was trying to make. Our sun's going to expand and it's going to shrink to a white dwarf. They even knew how much mass was in the white dwarf. You see, just because the sun shrinks down, it doesn't lose its mass. What happens is the mass is compressed and condensed So that one spoonful, if you were able to take a spoon and take a spoonful of the mass of a white dwarf, every human being on the planet together couldn't lift it. The Dogon tribe know this. They've made that exact statement. So they understand astrophysics on a level that we had to discover much, much, much later than them. But they knew this 7,000 years ago. What's interesting is when they got to Kemet, it was on the rebuilding phase, meaning prior to the Dogon tribe, prior to the Great Flood, there was an advanced civilization there as well. Matter of fact, that entire region, forget that, the entire planet was an advanced civilization. Far more advanced than we have right now. We're not even close to tapping into what they had. We haven't even scratched the surface of what they had, what they were capable of doing. Even with the suppressed technologies, even those aren't scratching the surface of the total power and capabilities of these ancient cultures. The Dogon tribe never had a military, police, or a jail system because they had zero crime. They would have disagreements, and then an elder would negotiate the terms of an agreement between the two sides, and that was the end of it. We don't know nothing. We're still launching chemical propelled rockets into space. We know nothing. So don't spit in your ancestors' faces by thinking you know more than them, because you don't, and neither do I. And so we know that, unfortunately, because of how peaceful they were, another race came in from the area and was like, you know what, man, these people are just relaxing in this golden age. They just chilling. They ain't got no worries in the world. They focusing on arts and crafts and knowledge and philosophy. We'll just take them over. So they got pushed out and went out into Mali, Africa, where they are right now, in Mali. Egypt, or Kemet, whatever you want to call it, has been overthrown 7 times. Another thing that's, before I continue to go into this Egyptian kings list, another thing that people get inaccurate or wrong is thinking that Egypt was all one race for the whole time. That's a falsehood. That's fake news. Egypt was overthrown 7 times by 7 different groups of people, multiple races. This is why when you go to the Cairo Museum, which I'll take you there if you come with me, when you go to the Egyptian Museum of Civilization, which I'll take you there if you come with me, you'll see bodies in there. You'll see the mummies in there. You'll see black mummies with dreadlocks and elongated skulls, by the way. You'll see black mummies with blonde hair. You'll see fair-skinned mummies with red hair. You'll see mummies that resemble people of Persian, Greek. You'll see even some that look Asian. So why is this? Egypt was a multicultural location in Africa. Even the last ruler was Alexander the Great. He became a pharaoh there. We know he wasn't black. We gotta tell the facts. But then you go down a little further, you see, go up another couple dynastic eras, and you're gonna find out the people look different. It's just a fact. It's a fact of life. We gotta stop running from it. We gotta start promoting the fake news. Yes, there were black people in Egypt. Over time, it changed up from race to race to race. It just is what it is. as Egypt was, like I said, overthrown 7 times in history. And the reasons why the noses are broken off and the ears are off is not because people didn't want people to know that black people were in Egypt. That's another big lie that's been out there for a very long time, going viral and floating around nonstop. When you come to Egypt with me, you learn the truth. That the statues and carvings there that date back 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, some even further back than that, years, thousands of years, before anybody of any other culture or skin tone came there, they're already off. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Then there's 2 reasons. The first reason is the most delicate part of these statues is the nose and the ears. They're the first to erode. They're the first to break when it falls. They're the first to go when they take them down and bury them or whatever happens. That's the reason number 1. The second reason is the Coptic Christians. Christianity existed long before Jesus was even born. The Coptics said, you know what? They kind of followed under Akhenaten's monotheistic ideas and began this whole new Coptic Christian thing. Akhenaten, reason why he was kicked out of Egypt was because he started saying there's only one God and we're going to follow God. So he was worshiping Amun-Ra, but the people were like, okay, well, that's the only one then. So then it turned into the God of heaven, and it turned into the Father God and the Lord. And the Coptics took that and ran with it over time. And then it was like, we have to deface all the other gods, because Akhenaten said there'll be no other God but him. So let's begin to erase this. And so the people of Egypt, they were getting pissed off at Akhenaten because he was having people go around chipping away the faces. He was. That's King Tut's dad. King Tut's dad, who was a black pharaoh, ordered this. Then the Coptics carried on. Everywhere where they would hide out from the Romans, they would hide in these ancient temples and places, and they would just, while they were in there, they just start chipping away because it was an insult to them. It was demonic. So they start chipping away all the faces of all these Egyptian gods. And then the Natiru, or AKA the Anunnaki, they would start chipping away all the faces. Anytime they came across a statue, chip it away. It was the ultimate, it was considered the ultimate insult. And that's how all these faces and noses got chipped away. We kind of get broken up. The first dynastic, the Dogon were pre-dynastic. Then we go into the dynastic era, and it's kind of lost. There's not a lot of information about the first dynasty, the second dynasty of Egypt. The first 2 dynasties are kind of it's really tough to put it together. And what we do know, though, is here's something interesting. Human sacrifice was practiced at the funerary rituals that were associated with the pharaohs. So why in the world would you be an advanced civilization that has high technology, that knows how to build pyramids and use them for multiple purposes, basically creating stone functioning machines, obelisks that are made of magnetized crystal granite that can send information back and forth, that can communicate, electricity for gold plating and other things, other uses, because we have the gold plated items. So we know they use electric gold plating. So that means they had electricity thousands of years ago. We know they had light bulbs and all of this. And so now with all this high knowledge and all this, you begin to do now human sacrifices. Something's wrong here with this picture. The sacrifices were done. Well, that tells me something about these people. They weren't that intelligent. You begin to discover that a lot of these sites that I take you to in Egypt are super ancient. I'm talking about far older than you can even imagine. We're talking about tens of thousands, in some cases, tens of thousands of years old. And you begin to discover that by the time the first dynasty begins, they inherited what was already there. They built nothing. These people in the first dynasty and second dynasty built nothing. And whatever they did build fell apart, mud brick stuff. It's a joke. They inherited these megaliths. They were there already when they arrived. Just like the Mayans built nothing. And the Mexican archaeologists will tell you this, that the Mayans built nothing, because they know. The Mayans inherited what was already there. They have records that the Mayans arrived in Teotihuacan, in Chichen Itza, and Coba, and all these other places. And the stuff was there already. They just moved in. And then they started doing what? Sacrifices. They would throw virgins into wells because they thought it would make it rain, and they would play on the ball court and rip your heart out if you won. Same thing going on over here in Egypt. Foolishness. Dogma and foolishness. Why? Because these weren't the people that built the structures. These weren't the people with the high knowledge at that time period. In some weird way, the knowledge was lost for a while. You had Namur and Horhaha, Jur and Jet and Mereneth and Den and Anajib and Semikaket, Ka, Sinferka. These are some of the kings that they're presuming ruled. And let's look at their kingship time that they may have ruled during this era. 54 years, 10 years. Just when they don't know. 42 years, 10 years, 8.5 years, 34 years. You see the difference? We don't really pick up an accurate account until we get to the kings list that I showed you I was standing in front of at Abydos. And we pick up around the 3rd dynasty. So we're going into the 3rd dynasty. So you can see the old kingdom picks up around 2649 to 2150 BC. Okay, that's BC. If you don't know, that means before Christ. Now they're starting to use BCE, which means before current era. So if you want to go before Christ, add another 2000 onto this number to get a real time period. Okay, so you're talking about 4,649 years ago, roughly. All right. And you can see we got the names of some of these kings from the Old Kingdom in the 3rd dynasty. Zenaket, Zojer, Simachet, Kaba, Huni, Snefru, Khufu, Jedvere, Khafre, Nebka II, going into the 4th dynasty now, Menacure, and even these, these people here in the 4th dynasty. In my opinion, they inherited some of the pyramids that were already here and put their name on them. So they put their name on some of the pyramids. That's my personal opinion. After looking and being inside of them, like in the 3rd dynasty, the Djoser, okay? That's the Bent Pyramid. That pyramid is a gigantic diagnostics tool, and it's so sophisticated. I've climbed on the inside of that pyramid from the bottom all the way to the top on the inside and took people with me. So you can see 4th dynasty, 5th dynasty, 6th dynasty. Then you get to the first intermediate period, okay? You got dynasty 8 through 10. Then the first half of dynasty 11. Then you get to the Middle Kingdom. And then it goes second half of dynasty 11. You can see all these kings here ruling. Dynasty 12, 13, 14 through 16, 17. Then you get to the New Kingdom era. And now you're getting into the time of Amenhotep III, who ruled around 1390 BC to 1352 BC. That's King Tut's grandfather. So he's all the way, King Tut is all the way up into the 18th dynasty. Well, his bloodline kind of becomes recognizable, I should say, around then, because some famous things happen with Amenhotep III and Queen Taye, and then leading into eventually, obviously, what happened with him and his demise. But all these kings here. What you can see on the right-hand side their ruling periods. They're not that long. Very short periods in kingship. Extremely short. Now we're down into the 26th dynasty, 27th. You see what it says right here? Persian. The 27th dynasty is Persian. The 26th dynasty is Scythe. The 25th dynasty is Nubian. So in the 25th dynasty, the Black Kings returned. Okay? They returned in the 25th dynasty. Look at this, the Macedonian period. Alexander the Great, you know about that. And then you even have the Ptolemaic period. When I tell you that there's time periods where civilization in Egypt itself has risen and fall between cultures and races. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact, all right? An absolute fact. So, yes, there were Black kings and queens, but there were also Persian kings and queens. There were Greek kings and queens. There were Nubian kings and queens. There were, I mean, you can just, the mix goes on and on and on. Various kings and queens over different periods of time, meaning different races of people over periods of time. You can see them inside of these museums. The bodies are there. But the point I'm trying to make is they understood initially, before the Great Flood, the Sumerian kings, they understood the secret of longevity of life. They understood the secret of immortality through a couple of means. Like I said before, the elixir of life, which included monoatomic gold and colloidal silver, along with a few other herbs that they would add in there. They also understood how to transfer their consciousness from body to body through these many halls of Amenti that existed around the entire planet. If you come to Egypt with me, I will take you to one of the halls of Amenti. I will take you to one. I will let you touch an actual rejuvenation chamber. You will see them. You will feel them. You will see solid diorite warped by an energy beam. You can't warp diorite without breaking it. It doesn't warp. But you'll see solid diorite warped. You'll see a gigantic rejuvenation chamber that's been warped by some type of an exotic energy field. And you can touch it. You'll see things that you never thought would exist on this planet. That's what I do when I take people to Egypt. It's a trip of a lifetime. We do incredible things. There's been a misconception going around for a very, very long time in the way that people have stated and talked about these Anunnaki beings, which are really they are the Atlanteans. Okay, so when you hear Atlanteans and you hear Anunnaki, we're talking about the same people. See, Anunnaki means those that came from heaven to earth, or from another place to this planet, from space to this planet. Any being from any planet, anywhere in the known universe that comes to earth is an Anunnaki. Okay, it's a generalized term. Just like if you were me, right? I live in Florida. I live in a city in Florida, right? So let's say Fort Lauderdale, Florida. If I hopped on a spaceship and went to another planet and people were there and they say, well, where are you from? I'm not going to say I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm going to say I'm an earthling from Earth, you see? And so it's a generalized name is what it is. Now, Atlantean is a specific name of the type of civilization that they built. They built an Atlantean civilization on this planet. And I personally believe after many decades of research and investigation, reading over 1,000 cylinder scrolls, tablets, papyruses, ancient texts, and so forth, visiting with ancient sages and wisdom keepers and archaeologists all around the world, my personal hypothesis now is that it's not just Earth that was Atlantis. It was also the moon, and it extended all the way to Mars and maybe even beyond. They were an interplanetary civilization, not just a ring city in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that sunk. That was just one capital of many capitals that existed on this planet. But they, in fact, were an interplanetary civilization. They had achieved what we would hope to achieve in the future. But you have to remember, according to these ancient tablets, they were approximately 1 million years ahead of us technologically, making anything that they do or did or still do to this day appear to be magic. When a more advanced civilization meets and engages a less advanced civilization, the less advanced civilization will deify the more advanced civilization. It's called a cargo cult. And what you have here on this planet, you have humanity, which is one gigantic 8 billion person cargo cult. That's what we've become. And the deities and everything else that we're worshiping and praying to are not the creator of the universe. There is not one book that exists on this planet, and I've gone through so many more to go through now, don't get me wrong, that is authored by the hand of God itself. I don't want to say him, because him would be an incorrect terminology. You don't give a creator of a universe a gender. There is no gender. God is a frequency. And so what we're saying here is this: the text is written by flesh and blood people, except for one text that I know of. There's only one text that's written by one of these beings, and it's the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I wrote my book about this gentleman, right? Look up Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. That's my book. In there, I talk about the guy who wrote his own tablets. He authored them himself. He didn't have a scribe write them. The rest of these tablets and scrolls and everything else were authored by scribes, people that one of these entities would dictate to. They called themselves gods, but they weren't gods. They masqueraded as gods, but they themselves even knew that there was something above them, because they said the creator of all will answer. They will have to answer to the creator of all for what they've done to people on this planet. So they themselves knew that they weren't the creators of the universe, because they called several times in the tablets on the creator of all, knowing that there was something higher than them. And so they've duped humanity. Some were nice, some were malevolent, some were benevolent. Some were good, some were evil. Yin, there's yang. Some wanted to help, some didn't want to help. Some tried to kill us off, some tried to save us. You can find this in all these different epics: Epic of Gilgamesh, Epic of Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, and the 7 Tablets of Creation. These texts predate most texts that exist on the planet, with the exception of the Emerald Tablets, some of the Vedas, and maybe the only thing that will come even close to a written handed down text will be the Mahabharata, right? And so the misconception, let me get back to my point that I was talking about, is there's this misconception between people that are following the ancient astronaut theory is that the Anunnaki created humans. Now, we have to be careful on how we state this, because according to the text, they didn't create humans. In other words, they didn't just from scratch, out of absolutely nothing, poof, there's humans here through some type of magic or alchemy or something like that, or did they have the creation power? They used genetic manipulation, which we're going to take a look at tonight. We're going to take a look into genetic manipulation that was done in ancient times. And this is one of the very first accounts of this evidence of genetic manipulation. But going forward into the future, even into what you call the modern day Bible, you find genetic manipulation when it comes to Mary, the mother of Yeshua, aka Jesus. I don't like calling him Jesus because Jesus means hail Zeus, and I'm not hailing Zeus. I'm talking about a real person, Yeshua, which is his real name, right? Yeshua was also a product of genetic manipulation through something called vitro fertilization, as well as his grandmother, who was also a virgin birth, which they never tell you about that in Bible study, that Jesus's grandmother, right? Yeshua's grandmother was a virgin birth. You never hear about it. They never talk to you about that in Bible study. Not once have you ever heard that come out of anybody's mouth, except for me, forbidden knowledge. Look it up. Make sure you get all your apocrypha texts, the text that was by accident on purpose forgotten to be put into the Bible by the Council of Nicaea. That's where you find all the incredible truths at, right? In the book of Enoch, he was such an important person that he was spoken about in the Bible, but his book, which talks about these same Anunnaki beings, left out. The Bible talks about the Anunnaki. They call them the Enoch in the Old Testament. They say the people that ran into these Enoch say that in their eyes, we were grasshoppers in their sight. That's coming from the Bible, the canonized Bible that you take and read and pray to and everything else, right? So these are Anunnaki, they exist. And these beings, these people that are in these Sumerian tablets, their names are in the Bible as well, but nobody ever reads the Bible, so they wouldn't even know. It's a singular term, but Elohim, the Elohim is the same thing as the Naturu of ancient Kemet. The Naturu, the Elohim, they're the same exact people. The pantheon of Sumeria, same exact people. Same exact people. Talking about a group of ancient people that had supreme tech and supreme knowledge. The Elohim said this, and this is what made it into the Bible. This is in the Enuma Elish, which predates the Bible. The people in the Bible weren't even in their papa's sacks yet, okay? They didn't even exist as a chromosome yet. They didn't even have a chromosome yet. They weren't even thought of yet. Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Does that sound familiar to you? Let us make man in our image and our likeness. Isn't that interesting? That you can find this in text that predates the Bible by tens of thousands of years. So, according to these tablets, this took place some 455,000 years ago. And but that was when they got here. But the creation of the Adamu took place around 300,000 years ago to 200,000 years ago. And that's when Homo erectus suddenly changed into Homo sapien, according to modern science. The process by which fashioning of the primitive worker was achieved is then described in the Atrahasis epic, as well as in several other texts. It involved obtaining from the blood of the god his tima. Okay, tima, that's probably his DNA. Scholars translate as personality or life essence, and mixing it with the ti'it of the Abzu. The term ti'it has been presumed to come from the Akkadian word tit, which equals clay. which is why it talks about using clay in the Bible. Hence the notion echoed in the Bible that Adam was fashioned from clay, but it's not exactly what it meant. They manipulated that terminology to get you to believe that somebody picked up some dirt and turned it into a human being. I would never want to be considered that I was just turned from dirt into a person. That means I was just a lump of mud. Now I'm a person. To me, that's not magical. To me, that's just dumb. Anyway, the life essence of personality of these gods was mixed with the essence of the existing being, found here on this planet at the Abzu, which is in Africa. By mixing genes extracted from the blood of a god with the essence of the existing earthly being, the Adam was genetically engineered. So the topic of this is, did the Anunnaki create mankind? In a way, yes, but creation from zero, just from scratch, no. What they did was our cousins were already here. We had cousins here. According to these tablets, these beings came to this planet. They saw us. They didn't even care. They were like, whatever, let them do what they're doing. We're gonna go ahead and start building this breakaway civilization on this planet, mining these resources and building this civilization out. They had their floor plans, they had their street grid, they had everything they wanted to do laid out beforehand. It's all talked about in the tablets. And Lil said, I'm gonna create the plan for all time on this planet. They started doing their work. They went right to work. They never touched us, never interacted, never messed with us. But in the Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis epic, something very interesting happens, which goes back to Mars. These EGG beings, which were also related to these Anunnaki people, these Atlanteans on Earth, they said, man, we're doing too much work. Like, you got us out here laboring like slaves, and when we ask for breaks, you don't give us any breaks. How long did they work? According to the tablets, they labored for around 250 to 300,000 years, nonstop, generation after generation. They just kept working, building. No breaks, no real rest, being worked like slaves. Finally, and read this in the Atrahasis and also in the Enuma Elish, they say, you know what, man, this is getting to be too much, you know? I think they think we're slaves here, and we're not slaves, so we need to go ahead and get some straightening. So these beings, these EGG people, they got together while on Mars. They had a discussion about it. They said, well, time to go to war. Time to go to war against the gods of Earth. That's Anu, who was the father, and then Enlil and Ea Enki. That was the Trinity right there. All right, those three people were running the planet. So what did they do? They got in their ships and they fell from Mars to Earth. They came from Mars to Earth. These are the gods that fell from heaven to earth in the Bible to go against God, to go against Anu, not the creator of the universe, God, to go against Anu, A-N-U. They show up in Adam's calendar in South Africa, which back then was called the Abzu. They go to the location where they are in the middle of the night, and they encircle the camp. Read this in the tablets. Read it. They encircle the camp. And then everybody begins to wake up because somebody comes and bang, 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 bang on the door. Like, get up, we here. And like, who's that rabble on my door? What's that rabble on my door? They call it rabble on the door in the tablets. They begin to get up and look around. The guards now are waking up. Everybody's looking around like, oh man, the Ijiji are here. They don't look too pleased. They don't look too happy. They got weapons. Anu and Lil Enki, they come outside. The war is getting ready to happen. Enki comes up with an idea, says, I have an idea that might fix the problem. There is an existing, keyword, existing being on this planet. They're talking about our cousins. Before we became Homo sapien sapien, we were already here. Already. But we weren't Homo sapien sapien, and we weren't monkeys either. We were advanced people. We were smart people. We were just more spiritually in tune with the planet and ourselves. We weren't, we weren't like we are now with disconnected DNA. They disconnected our DNA and all this other good stuff. And so they said, Enki says in the tablets, he says, we will take our essence and combine it with their essence. And then we will make them into the workers. They will bear the load of the Anunnaki. And that's exactly what started to begin. So they went into this, they came to an agreement, and the Ijiji said, okay, look, if you guys are really going to do this, we won't go to battle right now. We got you outgunned right now because there's a lot of workers, a lot of us, and not that many of you guys. And if you decide to, we could take you out right now. We're far away from the home planet. There's nothing anybody can do. This is like the Wild Wild West out here. We can do whatever the hell we want. So they're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and let you do this. All right. And so now, very good point Kelvin brings up here. And thank you for the donation. The Anunnaki had considered, one of their considerations was artificial people. AI, sound familiar? Artificial beings, sounds a lot like robotic AI. And the brother said, no. They had a few of them in the medical place that they had. There's a medical city they established to help with the workers. But they said that if we have too many, then what will they need us for? What happens when they realize they don't need us? Even they knew back then that robotic AIs, too many of them, was dangerous. So they decided not to do the robotic AI. They decided to start tampering with genetics, organics. So they genetically modified the existing hominid. Now, what they did initially, if you read these tablets, they didn't come to the first successful Homo sapien right away. They didn't even come to a Homo sapien right away. They began to clone these people that were already here, genetically modify them with their DNA and everything, disconnect some of their DNA, get them to understand their language and be obedient, and they had them starting to do labor. But the problem in the tablets was this. These people couldn't reproduce on their own. It's just like when you take a tiger and a lion, you get a tigon, or a lion and a tiger, you get a tigon. A lion and a tiger that mate they can mate with something, but they're never going to be able to give birth. They're never going to get anybody pregnant or give birth to anything, right? They're bare. They're barren. They can't do it. Same thing was happening with our cousins. They said, damn, this is a slow process. We need an army of people now. These Ijiji, they're going to come back and they're going to be pissed. They're going to destroy us. They're going to destroy us. And Chris Jackson, did the Anunnaki kill off the dinosaurs? Yes, they did, because they needed to make way for the workforce and the civilizations that they were building out here on this planet. They talk about using a directed asteroid attack or directed comet strike. So this is pretty interesting. So they're like, we gotta speed this process up. Isis comes up with an idea. She says, you know what? I'm going to take the egg out of one of these beings. We're going to add our essence to it. I'm going to put that in my womb and carry it to term. So this was the first of the genetic experiment that led to the Homo sapien. There's a famous cylinder scroll at the British Museum with Isis holding up the baby, saying, my hands have created it. The first Adamu, which means first man. The Adamu, which means first man. And so she put this egg in her womb. Now, creating an egg in this way or in fertilization in that way is called creating a zygote in modern genetics, or what we call modern genetics today. She created a zygote. She inserted it into her womb. It attached. She went 10 months, according to the tablets, not 9, gave birth to Adamu. After she gave birth to Adamu, once they got it to a matured state, they then had him begin to mate with some of these other beings that they had already been tampering with. Didn't work. Mating didn't work. Mating didn't work. They kept trying to mate. This is in the Eden, E-D-I-N. It clearly states in the tablets it's E-D-I-N, Eden. In the Bible, it's Eden. Isn't that interesting? Eden was a gigantic outdoor laboratory with guards. The same guards that they talk about in the Sumerian tablets. If you read the Bible, they have the same guards at the gates there. And these guards have weapons in the Bible. They got weapons in the Sumerian tablets. You better not try to go in or out. They're keeping you in, and they're keeping the people on the outside out. And then what happens? They say, well, this ain't working. We can't mate this guy. His sperm, let me check the sperm again. His sperm is working. It's swimming, but it's not working with these other beings. We got to do something else. So what they do, they take some of his own DNA. They clone they clone Eve out of him. Then they mate him and Eve. And guess what? Bingo. It worked. She gets pregnant. Oh, now we got the formula. Now we don't have to keep making these damn clones. It's a lot of work. So now Adam and Eve is the first genetically modified Homo sapien sapien that can mate with each other and have babies. So they begin to then reproduce that same experiment by taking eggs out of other women, inserting them into wombs of Anunnaki women, having them give birth and they call them the Hathors. These are the Hathors, all right? These are the Hathors that you learned about in ancient Egypt. Somebody says, do you know how our cousins got here? Yes, I do. If you talk to the ancient, the Aboriginals who I met in Australia, according to them, in ancient times, they were seeded on this planet by Pleiadians. That is their verbal handed down history for thousands of years. Not just them, also the indigenous natives of the North and South Americas. Same exact story. Interesting that this is an abandoned seed planet, that they seeded this planet with people, and then some period of time went by, they were gone. Then these Anunnaki people arrive and say, yeah, these people are just abandoned here. They don't even know what they're doing. They're just trying to learn how to develop themselves from scratch, and they took advantage of it. So back to the story. So they now have this mating thing going on. The Hathors have been doing these birthing houses, reproducing the same experiment with Adam and Eve. And now we've got, because you have to have a genetic pool. You can't create, listen to me, people. If you're a grown person right now, if you're a grown up and you still believe that 2 people can create 8 billion people, because we got 8 billion people on Earth right now, there's something wrong with you. I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying you got to rethink who you are and how high your intelligence level is. I'm just saying. Because if you go and have sex with your sister right now, you already know that baby going to be retarded. You know this for a fact. It's going to be a disabled baby, disabilities coming out the womb every time. And over time, by the 3rd or 4th generation, it's going to be all kind of malformed disabilities, right? So if we know that for a fact, then what makes you think that Adam and Eve is going to create 8 billion people? 2 people are going to create 8 billion. We got to really begin to think here. That's not what happened. The tablets tell you exactly what happened. It wasn't just Adam and Eve. They then created birthing houses where they duplicated the experiment with other Anunnaki women, giving birth to more and more of these Homo sapiens sapiens, creating a gene pool that they built up so that they can intermingle and intermate and create babies. When you go into the Bible, Old Testament, you find out that obviously Cain killed Abel, right? Over a dispute because one was jealous that God was having more favor over the other one's offering, and so forth and so on. So out of jealousy, he killed his brother. Now what happens? God comes back, but who's the God? God is Yahweh. Who is Yahweh in the Bible? Enlil. Enlil comes back according to the ancient tablets, and he's asking like, hey, what's going on here? Because by then, you know, he realizes that he killed a brother. There's a murder going on. One of the first recorded murders in biblical history, but not in history itself, because in the ancient tablets, there's a million murders going on. And he's like, what? Why'd you do this? And so forth. So he's telling him what happened. He's ashamed and everything else. He's kicked out of Eden. He's kicked out of the laboratory because this guy's violent now. And he goes, what Cain says something very important in the biblical text. He says, the people out there will kill me. The people out there will kill me. What people? There's only supposed to be a couple of people on this planet. What people out there? If it's Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, then what people are out there that's going to kill you? There were already hundreds of thousands of people out there living, working, and everything else when Cain was actually born. And then what does God say in the Bible? He says, don't worry, I'm going to put a mark on you, my brand, I'm going to brand you so that the people out there know you my boy and they won't touch you. That's what the Bible says. That's exactly what the Bible says, right? And so they brand him. He knows that, hey, okay, don't touch this guy. He's a Canaan. That's where the Canaanites came from, all right? And so this is what happened with the Cain, with Cain. So there were people already out there. God says to him, you'll know your wife. You'll meet her. You'll meet this woman. You'll find a woman out there. You guys are going to fall in love, and you're going to build this whole Canaanite kingdom. That's the Bible says. So people were already out there. His wife was already outside of Eden. She existed already. There wasn't two people giving birth to 8 billion people. Stop thinking that. Stop teaching that to your kids. Please, I'm begging you. It's foolishness. If you believe that, then start going having sex with your relatives right now. See what happens when your baby come out. Just see what happens. It didn't happen that way. Read these tablets. It tells you exactly what happens. These beings were mating. They had creating this mating farm, this mating laboratory called Eden. And Lil was known as the Lord. He was known as Satan, the Lord of Eden. Satan, the Lord of Eden. Satan. You wonder where that came from? Yeah, he's Satan. The snake that was in the garden was his brother, Enki. Enki came with the knowledge to Adam and Eve and told them that they were stronger and bigger and brighter, and that when he did the genetic tinkering, that he put a little extra in them, that one day in the future they would be able to tap back into it, and they themselves could rise higher than the Anunnaki. And his brother found out about this and started calling him the devil. And that information is in the Myth of Adapa. Do I have that book down here? Oh, it's upstairs. The Myth of Adapa, which is another incredible ancient text, cuneiform text that's available. The myth. I did a whole thing with Matthew LaCroix on the Myth of Adapa. It's so powerful. In the Bible, where it's talking about the saying that, you know, the angels were jealous of human beings because they were going to be exalted higher than them. That comes from the Myth of Adapa, ancient text that's talking about human beings, us, being created at a higher level, but not knowing we were than the Anunnaki themselves. We have to tap back into our DNA. We have to tap back into our, what they're calling junk, and plug it back in. We have to tap into our pineal gland and our higher consciousness. We have to tap back into our frequencies, get back on the frequency mode of love, understanding, empathy, service to others, and also then tap into all of our innate gifts that we naturally have. Things that they had to enhance with technology were built into our avatar bodies. Psychic abilities, telekinesis, intuition, all these the extrasensory perceptions that we don't think we even know exist in our bodies, but they're there, just lying dormant, waiting for us to tap back into them. So did the Anunnaki create human beings? Not exactly. They genetically modified our ancestors, which turned us into Homo sapiens sapien. And in actuality, all of us are Anunnaki because we all have the DNA of these beings running through our veins today. All right. But I love you guys. I appreciate you. Hopefully you learned something tonight. Hopefully I brought you some knowledge that you didn't know, something to add another feather to your cap. And again, I always bring my receipts. You know exactly where I got my information from. There's nothing coming off the dome here. This is real knowledge, real tangible knowledge that you can go research for yourself. All right. Love you guys. Peace. Watch this video for free at www.4bk.tv or download the app on your smartphone, Fire Stick app, Samsung TV, Roku, and other app providers. Join a conscious community that is helping awaken humanity to the forbidden knowledge and a path to a brighter future.